It's a world where English is 100 times harder to learn. Some people spend their whole lives trying to say one word, but a 100-year-old man just said the word wind. A clear sky is suddenly filled with wind and dark clouds. Then he said the word rain. The dry desert immediately began to rain. When I saw this, I was so stunned that I couldn't help but say, grass. The barren land was immediately filled with wild grass. The old man was surprised to see this and asked, how did you do it? Then he took me to a place called the Eternal Sect. That's when I realized that English is the ancient power spell of this world. As long as you say it in English, you can cast the spell successfully. I stood in the middle of the line and waited for the test. The test is to recite the words of the Eternal Life Bell and ring the bell, and the more times you ring the bell, the higher your status will be. The more times you ring the bell, the higher your status. If you ring it 7 times, you'll be recognized as an elder of the Eternal Sect. Right now, there are bells ringing from time to time, but only 3 at the most. More people are walking down the mountain with their heads hanging down because they couldn't ring it. The examiner, Shishan, looked at this scene and sighed, hey, there hasn't been a student who has rung more than 6 bells in 50 years, and the 2 exams in the past 10 years didn't even have 5 bells. Now that it was my turn to ring the bell, I took a step forward and saluted. Shishan examiner Lin Chen has come to take the comprehensive exam. Shishan nodded at me to start, but in his heart, he sighed again. He just looked like a commoner. He was probably another poor person who failed the test. I looked at the giant bell. 3 sound patterns immediately appeared on the surface of the bell. I was stunned and wondered if I was blind. Isn't that English? I half-heartedly said the words. Dang dang, there was a roar in the long voice, and immediately a new divine text appeared on the surface of the bell. As I spoke, there was another roar. The examiner, Shishan, looked up sharply. Even if other candidates with talent and resources had to hesitate for a moment when they saw the divine text, this commoner in front of him actually read it out in seconds. But without waiting for Shishan to get over it, the new divine text was read out again in the long sound, and then the new divine text appeared on the bell. Dang dang dang, and the long sound was struck twice again. Shishan was immediately excited. This is the first 4-ring disciple this year. This son is extraordinary. Cabinet house is finally considered to be a new addition to a disciple. At this time, the third elder also opened one of his closed eyes. Even the cabinet disciples had to hesitate for a few seconds to read the first 4 rings of the holy text, but this son didn't hesitate at all. Jisun was so happy that he was ready to announce me as the first disciple of the cabinet, but he was shocked again. There were 2 more chimes, and after 6 chimes a golden light shone from the chime. The disciples in the square were in an uproar. The third elder stood up from his chair and looked at me in disbelief. After 100 years, the sect has finally attracted a 6-stone sun. Immediately after that, a powerful divine thought from the valley peered into the test field, a peek from the patriarch of the Eternal Sect. The third elder withdrew his gaze from the master and mistress, but his tone was still incredible as he asked, you read the divine text above in the eternal life without thinking about it. Since the founding of the Eternal Sect, there have only been dozens of candidates with more than 5 chimes. Even the disciple with the most 8 bells took tens of minutes to read the first 6 bells of the divine text, but it only took me 10 seconds. At that moment the third elder's heart couldn't be described as shocked. It was terrible. And I also just shocked in the slow God text. This motherfucker is not English. The beginning of the first 2 sounds is the most ordinary regular script. After a few want to become a traditional scripted. This is also considered God text. Of course, their own cross this matter cannot be exposed. So I immediately used their native language to reply Noah. The 3 elders heard a face of disbelief. Then how can you just, gifted son, I said a few divine text, you try to repeat it to me. I shook my head and refused, but I haven't finished the test yet. The third elder was puzzled by the fact that the test hadn't been completed and that he was still able to play the 7th note, but at that very moment, I read the 7th, 8th, and 9th lines in one breath, and to my eyes it was just English with a different font. The bell rang 3 times in a row for the first time since the founding of the Eternal City. 9 chimes and the Son of God is born. The examiner, Shishan, collapsed to the ground. The third elder was dumbfounded, his mouth wide open. Shishan long sound Howell 9 ring grand elder Lin Phone at this time heard the movement is also met rushed to the test square. And at the same time in the depths of the eternal mountain valley, 3 mouths were suspended in mid-air bronze coffins, violently held up, from which flew out 3 shadows, exuding a shocking momentum. The eldest elder also felt the 3 old ancestors have awakened. When the Eternal Sect was nearly broken, the old ancestors were not awakened to help, but now only because a new candidate woke up. The 5 supreme reverends in the sect can't leave their posts at the same time, so they can only send the most prestigious white reverend to rush to the examination square to see what kind of god this 9-ringer really is. Can make the longevity bell 9-ringing disciple to be, was set up as the clan god's son, the elder pavilion and the supreme venerable to listen to his orders. Turned god after the third elder no I voice trembling said, the eldest elder is him, this son a minute rang the longevity in 9 times. I'm afraid that the clan that old man were alarmed. The great elder narrowed his eyes and looked at me, and found that there was nothing special about me. What is your name, which noble family's young master? My name is Lin Chen and I'm just a commoner. The great elder heard some sweat in his heart could not help but secretly this 9 rings really if you not, in front of me called disciple, the 3 old ancestors will not destroy me. But he also questioned me, since you can make the bell ring 9 times, you must have studied the sacred text. I will say a few words of the sacred text, you try to repeat it again. Beaded lotus flower, Lin Phone spoke in English. Immediately after, a pink flaming lotus flower appeared on his hand. I thought to myself, the sacred language of this world is English. If that's the case, I'll be invincible when I come to this world to practice immortality. Thinking of this, I repeated the pearl lotus flower. Then, the same lotus flower appeared on my hand as on the eldest elder's hand. The disciples and the other elders were in an uproar. It's impossible. That's the eldest elder's best skill. How can that kid know it? The great elder froze for a moment, is also in the heart of fear. Is this son is really 1,000 years of rare genius? He was unwilling to once again, said the divine text hurricane. Immediately after that, he saw a ball of fire appear in his hand. The fireball more and more dramatically larger, the entire square wins, many unprepared disciples were blown to the ground. However, this time I didn't choose to repeat myself, but had my own ideas. Raised his hand above his head and shouted, Super Hurricane. Finally wrong, he is completely different from the divine text spoken by the grand elder. Sure enough, this little son is just coincidentally lucky. A few ordinary disciples who have just been initiated said in surprise. People like them hated to see me make a fool of myself. However, the next moment, I saw a ball of wind in my hand, even bigger than the one before the eldest elder. I then threw it into the sky. Those initiated disciples who were mocking me were instantly blown away. Even the applause was blown and shook up. The eldest was so shocked that he hastily cast an immortal spell to protect them. At the same time, he looked at me with a surprised face. What did you do? Why did you say different words from me, but use the same magic as me? And it's several times more powerful. I froze, I improved it a bit. In fact, I can still use a more powerful one. What? That's impossible. Elder Lin, please step down. Don't lose face here. Venerable White said to Lin Phone without any ceremony. At this point I have realized in my heart that the divine text of this world is the English he originally learned. As long as you say the appropriate words you can speak the law. I can't help but rejoice in my heart. Lin Chen, you were gifted to make the longevity bell 9 ringing. According to the rules of the clan you should be personally taught by the patriarch, and known as the clan godson, but the patriarch has not yet arrived. You need to go through the elder pavilion and the supreme venerable examination. Examination to be able to completely sit in this layer of identity. The white venerable paused and continued to say, and now cultivation has been to what realm? I was dumbfounded when I heard that. What is that realm? The whole audience of disciples heard this and laughed out loud. He actually does not even know what the realm of cultivation is. Do not know the realm of cultivation can read out the divine text. It is hard to believe that he is the evil demon hall of the people. Venerable White also frowned, apparently not expecting that I actually don't know what a cultivation realm is. But I did let the Chang Sheng's Hong ring 9 times in a row, so he patiently explained to me the realm of cultivation, which requires you to understand a sentence of the divine text should have no difficulty for you. Plot behind the white venerable, instantly more than one and he looks the same light shadow, then more and more large last color became purple. The light shadow has 10 meters high. The surrounding disciples have been shocked. This is the reincarnation of the realm of immortal shadow. Really handsome. I nodded and immediately said a plot. Soon behind me there is also a shadow of light, only a white 2 meters high shadow of light just. The surrounding disciples immediately laughed. I thought how powerful it is. The cultivation is only a water mirror. Even if you can ring the end of the long life, since young how to stop the water mirror, my dog are added to the human mirror, laugh me to death. White honored to see my immortal shadow is also disappointed up. The sun, although gifted can be cultivation, is too low. I see their reaction, also understand their own cultivation may be low pitiful, cannot help but some inferiority complex, thought I want to be invincible it, did not think that only read the English language no cultivation, etc. Since the English language can be in the world of words out of the law sway, is it that? Thinking of this I violently chant in English to upgrade cultivation, upgrade cultivation. Even the white honored one on the side did not understand. This time I said what is the meaning of the divine writing stone? In the next moment, his face instantly turned pale. Because the immortal shadow behind me was getting taller and taller, from white to blue, blue to yellow, and soon the immortal shadow had grown to a height of 10 meters, and the color had turned purple. However, this did not stop there. The immortal shadow behind me once again became taller, rushed to a height of 15 meters, the purple color became red. And at this time above the dome, then appeared 3 nearly 100 meters high figure. The 3 old ancestors have been done by me. Completely shocked, Kiki appeared in the assessment square above the dome. Crap, this is the immortal shadow color of the void mirror, in situ promotion of the realm or even, ascending 5 times. What kind of monster is this? Quickly look at the sky, that is the 3 old ancestors of the Eternal Sect, my god. The leader of the Wuji old man was the first to open his mouth. Young man, you rang the bell of longevity 9 times, was established as the Eternal Sect's divine son. Would you like to be my student? The crowd in the square was in an uproar when they heard this. What kind of person is old ancestor Wuji? He is an immortal cultivator who has already stepped into the saint realm, just 1 step away from the emperor realm. In the Honggu continent, as long as the immortal cultivator has stepped into the holy realm, he can always call himself a holy name, and the holy name of this Wuji old man is the Wuji Sword Saint. Wuji Sword Saint, I heard after a head full of black lines. This is not in the original world, a fire game, a certain hero, and not wait for me to answer the Wuji old ancestor. The 2 ancestors beside me also spoke up. Don't listen to that Wuji old man, he is just a sword less powerful. You worship my Bodhi Dharma Shang as a teacher, I can teach you many lost secretaries. Bodhi secretary who do not have young man I am the Void Dragon Saint. If you worship me as a teacher, only need to practice for 2.5 years, you can suck to get the art of Jade Dragon, recover the Star World and the Void Star World, dragon for your mount are not in question. At this time, the 7 elders who are still standing on the examination square have already become tongue-tied. Come to the venerable also confused. The 3 great ancestors actually fight together. Young man, this is the treatment of the Eternal Sect's godson. After the 3 great ancestors quarrel for a while, Wuji old man took the lead to break the deadlock. The 3 of us also do not fight. Ask the godson in the end want to worship who was a teacher, and then the 3 great ancestors have cast their eyes to me. I wait in my mind, these 3 great ancestors are all Eternal Sect sealing existences, whoever I worship as a master will not suffer. Then I replied to my disciple Lin Chen did not know how to choose. How about the 3 ancestors at the same time let the disciple worship the banner? The words of those who ran to see the lively that, the door disciples suddenly sneered and sneered up want more it, but also want to its worship 3 ancestors as a teacher. The Eternal Sect since the establishment of the clan, has not been which disciple to worship more than one master example, arrogant too arrogant, and in the crowd of disciples talking about it, think that my godson identity to be cancelled when, the 3 old ancestors looked at each other in the eye and sacrificed to say let's do as you say. What? The crowd didn't know how many times they had been shocked. As soon as I heard that, I immediately kneeled down and said, my disciple, Lin Chen, I pay my respects to the 3 world fathers. Woji old man said smilingly you just joined the clan, first and the elder pavilion people to hand over to the clan, the necessary process, tomorrow morning to the back of the mountain of the Holy Land to find me. I will do as I am told. With the departure of the 3 elder gods, peace was finally restored in the firmament. I was also slowing down from my earlier cultivation upgrades at this time. I felt like I was filled with power after I had just continuously shouted about upgrading my cultivation level. I looked at Venerable White with an excited face. Venerable White, may I ask what process I need to go through now to be considered a true member of the sect? Venerable White came back to his senses from the shock and hurriedly gave me a bitter smile and said, Divine Son, the process of your joining the sect is no longer something I can decide. You need to consult the sect master. Patriarch, yes, you are now the divine son of the Eternal Sect. In addition to the 3 great ancestors and the Patriarch, the Pavilion of Elders and our Supreme Exalted Ones are all required to give you a respectful salute. Naturally, the sovereign will decide how to enter the clan. Where is the Patriarch? I'm here. Just after that, a hollow voice came from afar. I immediately looked in that direction. I saw a huge silhouette coming from the sky. In the next second, Eternal Sect Master Qi Xiaoya appeared in front of me. What surprised me was that the sect leader was actually a woman. Her expression was cold but her appearance was very impressive. I froze and immediately said, I am a disciple, Lin Chen, and I pay my respects to the sect leader. Qi Xiaoya looked at me up and down. Her eyes were puzzled. The reason she can be the youngest patriarch of the Eternal Sect is that she has a pair of very magical eyes, Sicilian pupils. She can instantly see, clear a cultivator's cultivation level and talent. But Qi Xiaoya, in my knocking, the 6th long sound in the time, the divine thought cast over, he found that my cultivation realm is the lowest level. After the water mirror, I rely on a set of divine text, instantly promoted to the void mirror. We must know that even if it is a great genius, from the water mirror to the void mirror, but also to spend decades, but I just rely on a set of divine text. In a minute will be reached, Shui Xiaoya heart shocked. At the same time, the corner of the mouth is also drawn a touch of arc. Lin Chen is to put into the clan process is very simple. As long as you just let yourself instantly promoted divine text, tell me we'll be able to join the Eternal Sect. I Wing Yin instantly froze. In my heart 10,000 grass mud horses raced past. Is this the process of joining the sect? This is robbery. Lin Chen was depressed beyond belief. He hadn't learned anything yet, but instead he was still being asked for his feats. This, Patriarch, don't you know this divine text? Qi Xiaoya said with a straight face. To be honest, there are indeed such divine texts within the clan, but there are no divine texts that can advance 5 realms in a row like you. Lin Chen now realized that the people of this world only relied on English as a technique, and didn't understand its meaning. Otherwise, there was no way that they wouldn't be able to use such a simple phrase as upgrading cultivation, as he had just said. Thinking of this, Lin Chen was relieved. Anyway, my word is my word. For words in exchange for my chance to join the clan, this is a sure thing. Alright, can you repeat what I just said about upgrading cultivation when I said divine text? Cultivation? Cultivation? Eternal Sect Patriarch Qi Xiaoya could barely repeat the 2 words of cultivation, while the word upgrade in front of it could not be repeated no matter what. The divine text wasn't something you could just repeat when you heard it. It required the cultivator's cultivation realm and soul power talent to reach a certain standard in order to repeat it. Obviously, even Qi Xiaoya, the patriarch, was not up to the standard of reproducing this divine text. Qi Xiaoya was unwilling. She tried several more times, all ending in failure. Qi Xiaoya couldn't figure out why the teenager in front of her, whose cultivation realm wasn't as high as hers, and whose soul power obviously couldn't be higher than hers, was able to speak such a high-level divine text. It's just that's the real reason why he was able to make the 3 old ancestors willingly accept him as a disciple at the same time, isn't it? It must be that those 3 old monsters have long since discovered this son's extraordinary features. Qi Xiaoya finally gave up and then opened her mouth and said, this divine text you will follow me into the sect later and write it down. You have now become a disciple of the Eternal Sect and have been ordained as an eternal godchild. Lin Chen knelt down on one knee and said, Disciple Lin Chen, obey. Afterwards, Qi Xiaoya loudly announced, the bell will ring 9 times, and the divine son will be established. Other than the 3 elder ancestors and the patriarch, all reverends, elders, and disciples within the clan must half kneel and salute when they see the divine son. The many elders present and Venerable White shouted in unison, follow the patriarch's orders. The disciples present also hurriedly knelt on both knees and said, disciples obey. Qi Xiaoya brought Lin Chen within the Eternal Sect's main hall, where only Supreme Exalted as well as the patriarch were admitted, and even the Grand Elder Ling Feng needed the patriarch's approval if he wanted to enter the main hall. However, Lin Chen's status as a divine son was only below the 3 elder ancestors and the patriarch, and he could come and go as he pleased in the main hall. Inside the hall, other than Venerable White who remained in the examination square, the remaining 4 Supreme Venerables were sitting on the venerable seats. When they saw Lin Chen, they were all surprised. They didn't expect the Son of God to be a seemingly mediocre teenager with ordinary qualifications, who didn't even have any special physical qualities. Of course, Lin Chen had just crossed over to this world and didn't know about too many things in this world. How could he know that his ordinary body had shocked everyone in the clan by making the eternal life bell ring 9 times? Lin Chen said to the unsmiling Qi Xiaoya, Patriarch, where do the 3 elder ancestors, oh no, where do my 3 masters live, and where do I go to find them? There's no rush. As a divine son you need to understand too many rules and responsibilities about the Eternal Sect first. Patriarch, please speak. Shi Xiaoya sat on top of the highest throne in the main hall and said to Lin Chen, "The three old ancestors, as your masters, are only teaching you the way of cultivation and the immortal arts, while I will be the one to teach you about the history of the clan and socializing outside the clan." Lin Chen was overjoyed. He didn't expect that after worshipping three old ancestors as his teachers, this beautiful patriarch would also want to be his teacher. This was too good to be true. Lin Chen didn't show his inner thoughts on his face, and pretended to say flatly, "Dare I ask what cultivation realm the patriarch is in?" Shi Xiaoya faintly said, "Holy realm." "Saint realm? Sovereign, you are also in the Saint realm?" "But my master and the others are only in the Saint realm. If you are also in the Saint realm, wouldn't you be on par with the three old ancestors?" Lin Chen's heart was incomparably shocked. Shi Xiaoya sighed. It seemed that the teenager in front of her didn't know any information about cultivators. Although the three old ancestors are in the Saint realm, they have stepped into the Saint realm for decades, and have long since stepped into the Quasi-Emperor realm. Moreover, the strength of a cultivator does not only depend on the cultivation realm, but also in combination with the soul power. Soul power is categorized into White Soul, Moon Soul, Fiery Soul, Kuei Soul, Fury Soul, and Immortal Soul. Soul power is more difficult to cultivate than the cultivation realm. The average cultivator's soul power to reach the Moon Soul will not be further progress. A lot of Saint realm strongman's soul power may only be an ordinary Moon Soul just. The soul power of the three old ancestors has already reached the level of a Kuei Soul. Lin Chen was staggered. He didn't realize that apart from cultivation realms, there were also levels of soul power, so it seemed that he would have to find a time when no one was around and try to say upgrading soul power in English. Shi Xiaoya looked like she saw through Lin Chen's thoughts. She frowned slightly and said, "You'd better not rely on advanced divine texts to directly raise your soul power like you did when you promoted your cultivation realm. If you want to make your soul power increase, you must have a strong physique. You don't have a refined body at all. You won't be able to withstand the powerful soul power. It's very easy for you to explode and die." Lin Chen was once again confused. Body refining? Well, these three old ancestors will pass on to you. There is no need for me to talk more. It's just that, you retire, rest well today. From tomorrow you will have to learn from the three old ancestors. Shi Xiaoya waved her hand, and a strange force directly pushed Lin Chen out of the main hall. Lin Chen was incomparably surprised. Is this the immortal art of a high realm person? Outside the main hall, Venerable White happened to be rushing back from the examination square, and he took Lin Chen to the residence arranged for the Divine Son. After Lin Chen left, inside the Eternal Sect's main hall, Shi Xiaoya looked sad and said to herself, "I don't know if this son will be able to get my sect through this once in a thousand years natural disaster." The other great sects started their preparations decades ago, but the Eternal Sect has not been able to receive any talented disciples over the years, so I hope that this Divine Son can represent the Eternal Sect in the battle. Lin Chen sat cross-legged on the bed after staying in the room that Venerable White had arranged for him, in which a number of books about cultivators were placed. In order to quickly integrate into this world, Lin Chen picked up these books intending to learn all about cultivators. Only Lin Chen picked up the book and said, 10 times reading. Lin Chen's eyes instantly flashed with brilliance, his hands flipping through the books extremely quickly, and in a moment's time, he had already memorized all the knowledge about cultivators in this world in his mind. He had basically understood the general layout of this world, but right now the thing he wanted to do the most was to enter a location he had read about in the book, the Void Star Realm. Earlier in the examination square, the Void Dragon Saint, the Void Old Ancestor, had said that there were Star Realm dragons in the Void Star Realm. Studying after him, one could capture a Star Realm dragon as a mount in the future. But Lin Chen didn't want to wait until later. He wanted to enter the Void Star Realm now. To enter the Void Star Realm, one had to speak the divine text that opened the Void Star Realm, but the divine text that opened the Void Star Realm was very long, and cultivators without sufficient cultivation realms and soul power simply couldn't speak it. So even if the divine text for entering the Void Star Realm was known to the world, only a handful of high realm ears could enter. And to Lin Chen, whose native language was English, no matter how long the divine text was, it was just a simple paragraph. Lin Chen read out the book's divine text for entering the Void Star Realm. In an instant, above the firmament of the house he was staying in, the sky was flooded with visions, and a crack in the void was torn from the firmament, and the space around him became distorted. Deep in the valley of Eternal Mountain, the lids of the three giant bronze coffins that were suspended in midair ripped up once again, and the three old ancestors came out of their bodies at the same time. And old ancestor Warju's face was pale and incomparably pale, who opened the void door to the Void Star Realm within the clan. Bodhi old ancestor's face was equally ugly, impossible. In addition to our three old guys in the clan who can open the Void Star Realm, even the lake girl can't open. Could it be that there is an invasion of Saint Realm powerhouses from outside the sect? The three elder ancestors immediately enveloped the entire Eternal Mountain with their divine thoughts, and discovered that the void gate of the Void Star Realm actually opened above the vault of Lin Chen's residence. Within the Eternal Sect's main hall, Shi Xiaoya also noticed the vision above the firmament, and she cast out her divine thoughts to see the void gate above the sky of Lin Chen's residence. What? Who opened the void gate? At this time, Lin Chen didn't know that he had opened the entrance to the Void Star Realm, causing the three elder ancestors and Shi Xiaoya, the patriarch, to feel in danger. Lin Chen walked out of his room, looked at the void door that had been torn out of the firmament, and recited, "Flight." In the next second, Lin Chen flew directly into the Void Star Realm. After Lin Chen entered, the void door instantly closed, and the vault of the sky returned to calm, as if nothing had appeared. Within the Void Star Realm, what met Lin Chen's eyes was a void, with strange sights and mists all around, and he floated on top of this void of war mists. This is the Void Star Realm? Lin Chen muttered, his body floating forward on its own as he moved his mind. Lin Chen didn't know that the Void Star Realm was a divine domain space left behind by the ancient gods, and that this divine domain had long since mutated, devouring the antimatter of this world from time to time. Ordinary cultivators simply didn't dare to roam this Void Star Realm, and those who dared to enter the Void Star Realm had to be at least at the Saint Realm, or else they would be torn apart by the creatures here at will. The fog of war in the Void Star Realm hid many void creatures that couldn't survive in the normal world, and any one of these creatures reached the cultivator's Saint Realm, and there were even void lords that had reached the Emperor Realm. Outside the Eternal Sect's main hall, the three elder ancestors and Shishoya had all rushed here, and they realized that the Void Star Realm's void gate had disappeared. Old Ancestor Wuji's face was grim as he said, "Bad, it must be that the Divine Sun's previous ringing of the longevity bell 9 times caused those void saints in the Void Star Realm to notice him, and open the void gate here to take the Divine Sun captive." Old Ancestor Bodhi was filled with remorse. "I blame the three of us for being careless, knowing full well that the Eternal Life Bell is a divine artifact left behind by the ancient gods, and that the 9 chimes of the Eternal Life Bell are tantamount to triggering the divine artifact, and so it was bound to be noticed by those void saints. Didn't set up a boundary for this place in time, allowing the Divine Sun to be captured." Xiaoya's face didn't look too good either. After all, it was not easy for the Divine Sun to appear to give the Eternal Sect the ability to fight against natural disasters. Who would have thought that this Divine Sun would be captured before he could even stay in the Eternal Sect for the night? "No, we can't just sit around and wait for death. She-girl, you go find the Supreme Exalted Ones now and open the Sect Protector formation with them. The three of us are going to make a trip into the Void Star Realm. The Divine Sun must not fall like this." After Old Ancestor Wuji said that, he prepared to open the Void Gate of the Void Star Realm. Xiaoya's face showed hesitation. These years, the Eternal Sect had been in the vortex of several big sects fighting, that's why it had no choice but to open the sect once in 5 years to accept disciples. If it wasn't for the 3 old ancestors who had been guarding the clan, I'm afraid that the Eternal Sect would have been annexed long ago. Old Man Bodhi could see Xiaoya's worry and comforted. "She-girl, don't need to worry, those people from the outer sects won't know that we've entered the Void Star Realm. We have to find the Divine Sun, it's the only hope to save the Eternal Sect before the heavenly tribulation." Lin Chen, who was in the Void Star Realm, traveled to a huge bronze door, which had a very strange pattern on top of it, resembling an immense and incomparable eye. Lin Chen stretched out his hand to go out of the way, but from inside the door suddenly came a roar, a voice like thunder. "Who is it that disturbs this emperor's rest?" From within the stone door came this low voice. Lin Chen froze, thinking to himself that this person had called himself an emperor. Could it be that he was already a cultivator of the quasi-emperor realm? Or even have reached the emperor realm? In that case, this person's cultivation realm was 1 level higher than his own 3 masters. "Lin Chen, I'm here to look for the Star Realm Dragon. Dare I ask Senior where I can find the Star Realm Dragon within this Void Star Realm?" In an instant, an extremely strong light flashed out from within the bronze door and enveloped Lin Chen, who only felt as if he had been stripped naked, and was being viewed by the people within the bronze door. Just a few seconds time, this strong light will disappear. The door issued a eek sound of surprise. "Strange. Your cultivation realm is only the Void Realm. How did you enter this Void Star Realm? Read the divine text for entering the Void Star Realm. How else would you get in?" Lin Chen was a bit confused. The strong man inside the door was silent for a few seconds before speaking. "You shouldn't be in this place. What are you looking for the Star Realm Dragon for? Be my ride. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha ha." The man inside the door looked like he had heard a great joke. His laughter was so loud that Lin Chen didn't understand why he felt like laughing so much. "Mortal, do you know what words you are saying? Is the Star Realm Dragon not something that a cultivator of your realm can harness? Ignorant, truly ignorant. Take advantage of this emperor's good mood today. Quickly get out of here." Without waiting for Lin Chen to react, the bronze door suddenly opened, from which a pair of gigantic hands stretched out to directly tear open a crack in the air, after which Lin Chen was directly pushed out. Lin Chen instantly returned outside the Eternal Sect's main hall and happened to see his 3 masters. Old Man Bodhi and the other 3 were about to open the gate to the Void Star Realm when they didn't expect Lin Chen to actually reappear, and all 3 of them froze at the same time. "Disciple, how did you get out?" Lin Chen hadn't understood what was going on the entire time, from entering the Void Star Realm to being driven out by the strong man in that bronze door, and his mind hadn't yet turned a corner as he said dully, "Apprentice just opened the door to the Void Star Realm, and not long after going in, he was driven out by a strong man similar to an emperor realm." The 3 old ancestors' faces changed greatly, and Old Ancestor Bodhi said, "What? You mean to say that you opened the Void Gate?" "Yes, in the books in the room, there are divine texts that record the opening of the Void Star Realm." Hiss. The 3 old ancestors simultaneously sucked in a breath of cold air as the 3 of them looked at each other. They had thought that Lin Chen had been captured by the Void Saint in the Void Star Realm, but they hadn't thought that Lin Chen had not only come out of the Void Star Realm in one piece, but had also said that the Void Door had been opened by him. So how is this possible? Old Ancestor Wuji took a step forward, looked Lin Chen up and down, and once again questioned, "Disciple, can you read that divine text?" Lin Chen nodded, and Old Man Wuji was instantly filled with joy. His eyes even reddened in excitement as he said, "Old Void Koan, Old Man Wuji, our Eternal Sect has produced a genius that is hard to come by in 1,000 years. The Eternal Sect is saved." The three old ancestors' faces were elated. It was just as well that Lin Chen didn't know the mysteries, but the three of them knew. What kind of perverted existence was it for a cultivator who hadn't even reached the Saint Realm to be able to read the divine text that opened the door to the Void Star Realm? At this moment, in a hidden river in the Eternal Mountain, a scattered white bone violently rushed out of the river, and the surrounding immortal chi quickly gathered, molding a transparent flesh for this white bone. He opened his eyes, which were glowing with an eerie blue light, while the immense and incomparable black immortal shadow behind him symbolized his Emperor Realm status. He had felt the Void Star Realm being opened in his dormancy, and from within, the aura of that Void Emperor was also revealed. Void Emperor. How could his aura appear in the Eternal Mountain? This white bone muttered. What Lin Chen and the three old ancestors did not know was that the aura revealed from within by opening the Void Star Realm gate this time had already attracted the attention of a number of Emperor Realm powerhouses from the Hengu continent. Ever since the three old ancestors had learned that Lin Chen had opened the Void Door on his own, how could they have the heart to make Lin Chen wait until the next day to cultivate? That night, Lin Chen was brought by the three old ancestors to a forest in the Eternal Mountain, where there was a waterfall and a lake in the forest, which could be considered as the place with the most immortal energy in the entire Eternal Mountain. Bodhi old ancestor said, "Disciple, the master has discussed with your other two masters that one of them will teach you for 3 days." Disciple follows Master Bodhi's arrangement. Your talent for divine text cognition has exceeded our expected imagination, but among cultivators, being familiar with divine text is far from enough. After all, divine text is just a way to unleash immortal arts. The hard power still lies in your cultivation realm, soul power and physique. These three items combined make a truly strong person. Lin Chen listened carefully to old man Bodhi's words. Even though you're proficient in divine texts, your physique is too ordinary. As a divine son of the Eternal Sect, you'll need at least an immortal body so that it's worthy of your status and convenient for your cultivation in the future. Lin Chen asked, "Master, then how should this immortal body be cultivated?" Bodhi laughed and returned, "This immortal body does not only require cultivation, but also requires the body of a cultivator who has reached the Tsung Dome realm to absorb his cultivation in order to become an immortal body." The Cthulhu realm? Lin Chen was staggered. He was only in the Void realm now. He wanted a body of a Tsung Dome realm cultivator. Where was he going to find one? Besides, other than Patriarch Qi Xiaoya and the three old ancestors, where else in the Eternal Sect were there cultivators above the Void realm? Lin Chen's worries were seen through by old man Bodhi, who stroked his beard and said, "There's no need to worry. Your body as a god's son, this crowning Vault realm cultivator, will naturally be hunted by the clanspeople, so you just need to cultivate." After saying that, old man Bodhi began to teach Lin Chen how to cultivate his physique, and so many of them required divine texts to assist, which was as easy as pie for Lin Chen. After teaching the cultivation method, Elder Bodhi said to Lin Chen, "Alright, you will first cultivate in these 3 days, and then I will come back to see your physique after 3 days. A normal cultivator would take 5 or 6 years to realize it, but with your understanding, you must cultivate to more than 30% in 3 days, and you must realize this book in half a year, so that you don't waste your status as a divine son." Old man Bodhi stepped into the air and left this forest, leaving Lin Chen alone in the forest. Lin Chen had been silently reciting the gongfu that Elder Bodhi had just taught him, and thought to himself that it wasn't that hard. Why would master think that I would only be able to cultivate to 30% in 3 days? In his depressed mood, Lin Chen suddenly thought that he could now speak his mind, so he might as well have a drink to relax first. "Coke," Lin Chen said in English, his hands already ready for a cup of Coke to appear. However, tens of seconds passed, and his hand was still empty, nothing. Lin Chen was a bit confused and repeated the process again, but it was still the same. Undeterred, Lin Chen said, "Sprite, iced tea, instant noodles, chocolate, ice cream, potato chips, and spicy fries." He said the names of all the snacks and drinks in the original world in one breath, but bizarrely nothing appeared. Lin Chen couldn't help but fret. Weren't words followed by words? Where were the things? Is it out of order? Thinking like this, Lin Chen hurriedly said, "Imperial sword." In the next second, a flying sword instantly appeared under Lin Chen's feet, and then directly carried Lin Chen suspended in the air. "That's not right. This hasn't malfunctioned." Lin Chen stared at the flying sword at his feet, pondering. Very quickly, Lin Chen immediately reacted. It wasn't that the divine texts had failed, but that the things he had said didn't exist in this world, whereas the divine texts he had said earlier and the flying swords he had just said existed in this world. That is to say, only things that exist in this world will appear when spoken in divine text. Lin Chen let out a sigh. He had thought that in this world he could call the shots and say whatever he wanted, but now it seemed that there were still limitations. However, compared to other ordinary cultivators, Lin Chen felt that he was already close to an invincible existence. After all, the divine texts that were difficult for ordinary cultivators could be considered easy for him. But, how do I get back to the original world? Lin Chen looked at the starry sky, incomparably missing everything in that original world. Lin Chen sat down on the huge rock below the waterfall, his head facing the huge impact, and in his mind, he began to silently recite the gongfu that Elder Bodhi had taught him. This gong method consists of half of the language of this world and half of English, and Lin Chen only used 10 minutes to comprehend 10%, followed by 20%. During the process Lin Chen could not penetrate, he said in English, understanding, penetration, epiphany. If Bodhi old man saw this scene, must be angry spit blood not. In less than an hour, Lin Chen had already comprehended 90% of it, just short of the last 10%, and Lin Chen had completely entered the environment of an epiphany. He didn't notice in the slightest that the huge immortal shadow behind him had already manifested along with his epiphany, the red immortal shadow overlapping with the waterfall's current, and a gleam of golden light emanating from him. No matter what, old man Bodhi could not have imagined that the technique that he he himself had taken a year to comprehend even back then had taken Lin Chen only an hour to comprehend. Old man Bodhi, who had just stepped back into the bronze coffin to rest, instantly pressed on when he saw the golden light emanating from the eternal forest. What? He's already enlightened? Demon? What a demon! While Elder Bodhi was shocked, more excitement was in his heart. This disciple of his not only surpassed normal people in his understanding of divine texts, but even his cultivation talent was so terrifying. In time, it was very likely that he would become the first Emperor Realm powerhouse in the Eternal Sect other than him. After Lin Chen finished cultivating his Gongfu, he felt his body was soothed like never before, but he was already tired after cultivating, so Lin Chen returned to his residence and went straight to sleep. At night, Lin Chen was lying in bed sleeping soundly. He had a bad habit of talking in his sleep. Before Lin Chen crossed over to this world, he had just finished watching an island anime, and he was still immersed in its plot. Lin Chen drooled and muttered in English under his breath, "Ground exploding star." In an instant, a purplish-red night pearl appeared in the night sky above the Eternal Sect, and it began to gather the surrounding immortal chi, and then a large amount of stones began to gather towards this night pearl, gradually turning from the size of an apple into a sphere with a diameter of 10 meters. The night pearl was still getting bigger, and this terrifying gathering of chi had already alarmed the five supreme exalted in the main hall. In his sleep, Venerable White snapped his eyes open, sensing the terrifying immortal aura outside, and shouted, "Enemy attack, enemy attack." All Venerable Masters opened the clan protection formation. In just an instant, Venerable White disappeared from his room and instantly flashed to the square above the main hall, with the other four supreme venerables arriving one after another. The second-ranked 10,000 venerable one was shocked. What's the situation? What exactly is that huge rock in the night sky? Don't consider that line first, quickly notify the Patriarch. We must immediately open the clan protection array. That boulder looks like the immortal art of some high realm powerhouse. That terrifying chi gathering is no stronger than the five of us combined. As she spoke, Chi Xiaoya also appeared in the square of the main hall, and she frowned at the boulder in the night sky. No, this should not be an enemy attack. Gathering chi is a bit powerful, but the soul power of the person gathering chi is obviously very weak. I think it's only at the level of a white soul. Venerable White looked worried. Patriarch, if this isn't a hostile attack, who could it be that dares to unleash an immortal technique so arrogantly above the main hall? At this moment, Lin Chen in the room muttered again, 10,000 elephant heavenly guide. A starry night rift tore open in the dark night sky, and from it flew out a large number of heavenly meteorites, flying towards the Eternal Sect at extremely fast speeds. Chi Xiaoya's face changed when she saw this scene, and a bold guess instantly came to her mind. Then she said, "Five venerable masters, you guys quickly open the defense barrier. Even though this immortal technique is bizarre, none of the power is too great, so you guys can withstand it. I'll go in return." The five venerables looked at each other in dismay, and Venerable White let out a bitter smile and said to the venerables, "Since the Patriarch has said that we can block it, then we don't have to be presumptuous." All venerables listened to the order to open the five Mangles defense formation. Five venerable mouth at the same time said gathering chi, then five people's immortal shadow instantly exposed. Purple his 10 meters high immortal shadow in the night is particularly conspicuous. The five of them were all reincarnation realm cultivators, and the purple immortal shadow of one of the 10,000 exalted ones was vaguely revealing a red color, which was a sign that they were about to break through the reincarnation realm and advance to the void realm. The five Mangles defense formation was the strongest multi-person combination immortal art of the five supreme exalted masters of the Eternal Sect, even against cultivators of the crowning vault realm. Sure enough, the five-man's defense formation resisted the dozens of extraterrestrial meteorites that smashed down in the night sky, but the boulder was still gathering chi and growing larger. By now it had turned into an oversized sphere with a diameter of nearly 30 meters. Because of being Lin Chen's master, none of the three old ancestors had returned to the bronze coffin to rest. They were only meditating within the Immortal's cave where the bronze coffin was placed. The three elder ancestors simultaneously sensed someone gathering chi within the clan, and elder ancestor Bodhi frowned as he spoke, in the middle of the night, who was gathering chi immortal arts within the clan. How does girl chi discipline her disciples? Something's not right. I sense the Supreme Exalted One opening the five Mangles defense formation. Is it possible that someone from an outside clan is coming to invade? Woji old ancestor got up and said back, normally even if there are external sects coming to harass, according to reason we such a saint realm cultivator should not take action, but our disciple is still in the sect, can't let him be disturbed by the intrusion. Let's go, let me see what kind of ungrateful guy dares to attack the Eternal Sect at night. Really think that the Eternal Sect is a soft persimmon? The three old ancestors' divine thoughts moved in their true bodies instantly appeared within the main hall. Outside Lin Chen's room, Chi Xiaoya was already standing in front of the door, and when she had just seen the obviously powerful immortal technique, in which the soul power was ridiculously weak, she immediately wondered if this could have come from Lin Chen's hand. Without waiting for Chi Xiaoya to push the door in, the three old ancestors had already appeared behind her. Late girl, which ungrateful sect attacked at night? Elder Bodhi stroked the beard on his chin. Chi Xiaoya was also shocked to see the three old ancestors, and hurriedly returned, it is not an enemy attack from a foreign clan, I suspect that this is made by the Son of God. Oh, what do you mean by that? Chi Xiaoya didn't answer old man Bodhi as she pushed open the door to Lin Chen's room and found him wearing only a pair of pants, lying naked on the bed with his upper body in an extremely indecent sleeping position. At this moment, Lin Chen was still muttering the earth-bursting heavenly stars and 10,000 elephant heavenly attractions, and every now and then he would interject a phrase about the gongfu that Elder Bodhi had taught him at night. The three old ancestors ancestors and Qi Xiaoya's movements froze, especially Qi Xiaoya, who said incredulously, This is divine text. He's still talking about divine texts while he's sleeping. He really caused the visions outside. The divine text was a prerequisite for the launching of the highest level of immortal arts in this world, and it took a lot of effort for an ordinary cultivator to read the divine text even when they were awake. Yet Lin Chen was sleeping, treating the divine text as nothing more than dream words. Pervert. This was the only word Qi Xiaoya could think of to describe Lin Chen at this moment. The three old ancestors didn't react for a moment, because they couldn't understand the divine text that came out of his mouth at all, other than the divine text in the Gongfu that old ancestor Bodhi had taught him about. Old Voidkun let out a gasp. Old me has never seen a cultivator who can be so relaxed that he can treat divine texts as if they were dreaming. If it wasn't for the fact that Lin Chen he doesn't have a special physique, I would really think that he's the reincarnation of some ancient immortal emperor. The heavens will not destroy my eternal sect. How can I, Wuji Sword Saint, be so virtuous as to accept such a genius as my disciple? Old ancestor Bodhi wasn't as surprised as the other two old ancestors, because the Gongfu he had just taught to Lin Chen at night had only taken Lin Chen an hour to completely comprehend. Even the exceptionally gifted Bodhi elder ancestor himself back then, it took him a year. So it was no longer strange for Lin Chen to show any more amazing maneuvers. Old ancestor Wuji woke up the sleeping Lin Chen, who sleepily opened his eyes and realized that his three masters and the patriarch were all standing in front of him. The three masters and the patriarch, what brings you here? Lin Chen looked at the still dark sky outside the window and said, It's not even dawn yet. The Wuji old ancestor laughed bitterly as he spoke. My good disciple, if you don't wake up, this eternal sect is going to be demolished by you. What? I'm going to tear down the eternal sect? Lin Chen looked at old ancestor Wuji with a confused look on his face. He was obviously sleeping. How did he demolish the eternal sect? Disciple, your mouth is restless when you sleep, reciting divine texts that none of the masters have ever recognized. If it weren't for the fact that your current cultivation realm and soul power aren't very high, this eternal sect would have been demolished by you. Lin Chen got out of bed and walked out the door to find that the five supreme exalted masters in the square of the main hall had gathered together to set up a formation as if they were on the verge of a great enemy, and there were meteorites of all sizes scattered around the clan. On top of that, there was the incomparably huge sphere hanging in the night sky. All of this was too familiar. Wasn't this the skill of the boss in a certain anime in his original world? Did he subconsciously give it away in his sleep? Lin Chen said tentatively, Collect. Sure enough, the giant sphere instantly disintegrated and shattered into pieces. The Supreme Exalted One was relieved to see the sphere disappear from the night sky, and was immediately ordered by Qi Xiaoya to be clear of the meteorites scattered within the clan to prevent causing a disturbance among the other disciples. After the five Supreme Exalted Ones left, Old Man Bodhi stepped forward and said to Lin Chen, Disciple, in the future, you must keep your mouth tightly shut when you sleep, so as not to cause another oops like tonight. Got it, master. Lin Chen was depressed in his heart. He himself didn't expect to be able to chant while asleep. We don't even understand the divine text of the dreaming you speak of, disciple. Where did you acquire this divine text you speak of? Lin Chen did not know how to reply to the Wuji old ancestor. Cannot tell him that he is crossing over. This sentence is played in the anime. Helplessly, Lin Chen could only say that he had created these himself and had not learned them from anywhere. The three old ancestors and Qi Xiaoya simultaneously sucked in a breath of cold air. Self-created? One must know that divine text was a language left behind by the ancient gods, the language of the true god immortal emperors. So how could an ordinary cultivator create his own divine text? No matter how much the three old ancestors pressed him, Lin Chen said that he had created it himself. Seeing how his three masters didn't believe him, Lin Chen simply said, Three masters, if you're not a believer, the disciple can still create a few more lines of divine text that the masters won't understand. The Wuji old ancestor felt that as a master, it was not good for them to refute their disciple's face, and simply waved his hand. No need for that, disciple. If this is really created by you, it is really possible that you are the reincarnation of some ancient deity. But remember, this immortal art must not be used easily. If not for the fact that your soul power is temporarily very weak, this powerful immortal technique will surely lead to a great disaster. Wait until your soul power is strong in the future, then go ahead and use this immortal technique. My disciple remembers Master Wuji's words. The Wuji old ancestor nodded, ready to leave the place, and said to Lin Chen, Alright, you should get up and cultivate after resting for a little while longer. The technique that your master Bodhi taught you, you should cultivate it quickly, and cultivate your immortal body earlier. Without waiting for Lin Chen to speak, Old Man Bodhi said for Lin Chen, Old Wuji, I'm afraid you'll have to be the one to teach our disciple a lesson today. Oh, why is that? Didn't the three of us agree that Lin Chen would be taught by the three of us in turn, with each of us teaching him for 3 days? Old Man Bodhi looked at Lin Chen and signaled to let him speak for himself. Lin Chen was slightly surprised. He didn't expect that Old Man Bodhi had already seen through that he had long since realized the technique. He went up to Old Man Wuji and said, Reporting to Master Wuji, Master Bodhi has imparted to me the technique for cultivating my physique. My disciple has already thoroughly realized it yesterday and cultivated it to a great success. It was already unknown how many times Lin Chen had shocked Qi Xiaoya and the old ancestors this night. Lin Chen was now a monster's existence in their eyes. Old ancestor Wuji was so surprised that even the immortal aura on his body fluctuated as he repeatedly lamented, worthy of a heavenly talent, as a divine son, this talent is too intimidating. Even in the history of cultivators, there is absolutely no one who cultivates as fast as you do. Originally, the three old ancestors had only thought that Lin Chen was exceptionally talented, but now they were really starting to believe that Lin Chen might actually be the reincarnation of some ancient deity. The three elder ancestors returned within their immortal cave, leaving only Qi Xiaoya and Lin Chen in front of the main hall. Patriarch, do you have something else for me? Lin Chen scratched his head. He was only wearing a pair of underwear all over his body. Standing nearly naked in front of the beautiful patriarch like this, it would simply be a lie if he wasn't embarrassed. In fact, Qi Xiaoya also felt awkward, but as the patriarch is of course high and cold, she pretended to be indifferent and said, I forgot to tell you before, I also have 2 disciples. They will return to the sect tomorrow from the end of their external training. You and they will communicate more in the days to come. The lifespan of the 3 old ancestors is already close to the limit, except for the time when they teach you their techniques. They all have to hibernate in the immortal cave, so if you have any questions you can ask my 2 disciples. Understood, Sovereign. Qi Xiaoya glanced below Lin Chen and said, knowing that, why don't you go back? As a divine son of the clan, what's the decency of wearing only a cover-up cloth? Lin Chen's old face reddened and he hurriedly ran back into the room. Back in his room, after that earlier, Lin Chen had long since lost his sleepiness. He sat cross-legged on the bed and meditated, and then began to use the gung fu taught to him by Elder Bodhi to luck out. Lin Chen quickly discovered his own problems. His cultivation realm was very nebulous, and there was a hidden risk of regressing the realm. He realized that this was probably because when he was in the examination square, he had promoted from the water-stopping realm to the reincarnation realm in a single breath by relying on the divine scripts, resulting in an unstable foundation and not having the accumulation that other cultivators had had all the way through the process, which was why this tendency to recede from the realm was occurring. Alas, it seems that relying on plugins to upgrade is not desirable. In the future, we still have to cultivate in a practical manner and work hard to advance. After a sigh, Lin Chen's mouth recited again, consolidate the cultivation realm, consolidate the cultivation realm. After dawn, Lin Chen arrived within the Eternal Forest, and old ancestor Wuji had already arrived early. Good morning, Master Wuji. Old ancestor Wuji nodded his head gently, then with a thought, he summoned a long sword. This sword emitted a golden light, and the first time the Wuji old ancestor gripped this sword, he instantly erupted a sword chi that shook Lin Chen back a good distance. Cultivators who had reached the Saint realm could name themselves Saint, and the Saint of Wuji old ancestor was Wuji Sword Saint, and the sword in his hand had a great deal of significance as well. Lin Chen, my master has imparted to you what I have learned in my life. Using the sword to the highest level is to hide the sword in the heart. Of course, in order to cultivate a good sword, you must also have a good sword. After saying that, old ancestor Wuji once again took out a sword of obsidian gold, and he handed it to Lin Chen. This sword is called Black Tsunami, is the Sword Clan's first swordsmith to build out. Back then we in the Sword Clan friendship, the Sword Clan gifted me this Black Tsunami. Today I give it to you. In the future, when you step out of the Eternal Sect, if you have the opportunity to find the legendary divine weapon as your sword, becoming a new sword magnate is just around the corner. The Wuji old ancestor taught the soaring Imperial Thunder skill to Lin Chen, and Lin Chen learned the sword techniques in it by heart along with the insights that the Wuji old ancestor had taught him. This Ascension Royal Thunder skill is almost impossible for cultivators below the Saint realm to cultivate, but if you, my disciple, are exceptionally gifted, you will certainly be able to realize some of its mysteries in the reincarnation realm. By the time you cultivate to the Vault realm, this Thunder Royal secrets will also be able to cultivate to at least 50%. For swords, even if Lin Chen knew more divine texts, they wouldn't be of much use, and he could only use them to create 1,000 strange immortal techniques. Double your practice. Taking advantage of old ancestor Wuji's inattention, Lin Chen quietly recited a sentence in English, and then his entire body was filled with a strange sensation. His thoughts became more focused, and his cultivation of the sword recipe was sped up quite a bit. Lin Chen knew that he was only said to have ordinary qualifications amongst cultivators, but he had the hangover of being proficient in divine texts, which made up for almost all of his shortcomings in cultivation. In this world, grasping the divine text was the same as finding the path to becoming a god. If one can cultivate to the Emperor realm, perhaps there is a way to return to the original world. Thinking of this, Lin Chen cultivated even more diligently. Lin Chen had been cultivating until the afternoon, feeling as if his bodies were about to fall apart. The Wuji old ancestor stood aside with his backhand and said to Lin Chen, cultivating the sword technique requires a strong soul power to support it. Your soul power is your shortcoming. Without a strong soul power, this royal thunder skill can't exert its full power. Master Wuji, how should soul power be cultivated? In fact, Lin Chen also sensed that his own cultivation was not enough. Even if he used the doubled cultivation is not helpful, always feel that there is a wall in the body to prevent him from continuing to climb. He wanted to rely on the divine text soul power promotion to raise the level of his soul power, but this time, the divine text didn't work. There are 6 levels of white soul, moon soul, fiery soul, kuei soul, fury soul, and immortal soul, and your soul power is at the lowest level, white soul, and it is naturally not desirable to cultivate this high level of swordsmanship. If you want to cultivate your soul power, there are 2 ways. One is to rely on a large number of battles, in which the soul power will increase by leaps and bounds. The second is that every clan has a soul tower for cultivating soul power, and entering the soul tower to cultivate soul power, only the speed is much slower than actual combat. Lin Chen had a new understanding that there was such a thing as a soul tower. Wuji old ancestor waved his hand and said to Lin Chen, that's just it. This soaring Imperial Thunder skill will be put aside for the time being, so you can go and raise your soul power first. Dare I ask, master, what level is your soul power now? The Wuji old ancestor laughed and disappeared in the next second, but Lin Chen could hear the voice he left behind in his ears. Ka-soul. Lin Chen was shocked. He didn't expect that a powerful person like the Wuji old ancestor's soul level would only be a Kuei soul. Wouldn't one have to become a top realm like the Emperor realm in order to reach the Fateful Soul and Immortal Soul? It seems that this world is more complicated than the original Immortal Cultivation novels I've read. Not only do you have to cultivate your own cultivation realm, but you also have to cultivate your physique and soul power. To become a truly strong person, one has to cultivate all three. Leaving the Eternal Forest, Lin Chen went to the main hall to look for Patriarch Qi Xiaoya. Lin Chen's top priority was that he intended to go to the Soul Tower to cultivate his soul power level, but he had always stayed in the main hall and the Eternal Forest since joining the sect, and had never set foot in the outside world. So this Soul Tower, it can only go to Qi Xiaoya. At this time in the main hall, a man and a woman were standing in the hall. The boy's face was polished and fair, with sharp edges and corners, and he was very good looking. The girl on the other side was also elegant, with a pair of crescent eyes, dimples at the corners of her mouth and tiger teeth that made her look incredibly cute. These two were none other than Eternal Sect Patriarch Qi Xiaoya's disciples, Zuanan and Mu Yu. Senior brother, I heard that old ancestor Bodhi and the others awakened from dormancy, and that the three old ancestors collectively took on a disciple. Zuanan raised his eyebrows, looking surprised. How is this possible? Three old ancestors accepting a person as a disciple at the same time. What is this person's identity? I heard from the disciples of the cabinet that when the clan was opened 2 days ago to accept disciples, this person rang the eternal life bell 9 times and was established as a divine son by the master and the old ancestors. Sanan instantly tightened his brows and clenched his fists. Despite the expressionless face, the anger and resentment in his heart had already killed the godson he had never met a million times. Zuanan entered the Eternal Sect at the age of 15, and because of his family and his natural soul power as a fiery soul, he was taken in by Patriarch Qi Xiaoya at a glance and accepted him as a disciple. After 3 years of cultivation, Zuanan had managed to have the qualifications to be elected as a divine son, but he didn't expect to be shortchanged halfway by someone who had just passed the examination. Yeah, where is he now? Sanan almost gritted his teeth. At that exact moment, Zuanan noticed a youth leisurely whistling as he walked in from outside the main hall, with a face of debauchery, just as if he didn't have the rules of a disciple of the Eternal Sect. It was impossible for anyone other than the Patriarch and the Supreme Exalted to be able to enter the main hall, and Zuanan and Twilight Rain had the privilege of entering the main hall as Patriarch Qi Xiaoya's disciples. And right now this youth with no rules to speak of appeared in the main hall. Zuanan was shocked and furious. Who was he to actually dare to trespass into the Eternal Sect's main hall? Zuanan blocked in front of Lin Chen and said with an icy face, "Whose disciple are you that you dare to trespass the main hall?" Lin Chen was a little confused as he looked at the man and woman in front of him. Didn't the Patriarch say that only Supreme Exalted can enter the main hall? Who are these two people? Lin Chen raised an eyebrow and said, "I'm the disciple of Elder Bodhi, Elder Wuji, and Elder Voidkun, and I've been given the privilege of entering the main hall in addition to the Supreme Exalted and the Patriarch." Nuria covered her small mouth and said in surprise, "Oh my god, you're the son of God?" For the cute-looking girl in front of him, who gave off an innate good feeling, Lin Chen smiled and nodded to her. "It's me, my name is Lin Chen." Twilight Rain immediately returned. My name is Twilight Rain, I am the disciple of the Sovereign, and this person next to me is my master." Not waiting for Nuria to finish his sentence, Zuanan interrupted the two of them. He looked at Lin Chen with an icy expression on his face, and in the next moment, he directly gathered his chi, and a huge blue immortal shadow instantly appeared behind him. Lin Chen was also startled, not realizing that the youth in front of him was actually in the Tsangdong realm, which was one level higher than the cultivation realms of the 5 Supreme Exalted. Twilight Rain hurriedly said, "What are you doing, senior brother? I've already scanned him with my mind just now. He's nothing more than a mortal body and white soul cultivator, nothing more than a higher cultivation realm, a void realm. With a qualification like his, he could never be a divine son. Who the hell are you, trespassing into the main hall and impersonating a divine son? This is a capital offense." After saying that, Zuanan unleashed his immortal art and ran directly towards Lin Chen. Lin Chen hadn't reacted to what exactly was going on, but he wasn't going to foolishly stand still and let the youth in front of him attack him. Lin Chen also instantly gathered his chi, and the red immortal shadow instantly appeared behind him as he unleashed his immortal art and recited, "Beaded Lotus." A pink lotus flower instantly appeared in Lin Chen's hand, and he raised his palm to slap Zuanan. "Sculpture is a small skill. Thinking that you're arrogant because you know a few divine writings?" Zuanan snorted coldly and disappeared in front of Lin Chen in the next second. Zonan's sudden disappearance caused Lin Chen to shoot blankly, and he instantly broke out in a sweat, realizing that Zonan had already appeared behind him. Lin Chen was also very fast, and on the spur of the moment, he pulled away from Zonan with an instantaneous flash. At the same time, he also realized that the youth in front of him was higher than himself in his use of immortal arts, as well as his soul power, and that he could never be his opponent by relying on normal immortal arts and soul power battles. Lin Chen thought to himself that it was just a big deal to be scolded, but he couldn't stand and be beaten, right? Thinking this way, he rushed out of the main hall, while Zuanan chased after him and shouted, "Want to run? This main hall is not a place where you can come and go as you please." Zuanan immediately chased after him, but unexpectedly Lin Chen stood still. Then he gathered his chi again and unleashed the immortal art that had been temporarily banned by the 3 elder ancestors, Wanxiang Heavenly Leader. In an instant, a starry night rift was torn above the sky, and from within, dozens of burning meteorites instantly appeared, falling towards Zuanan at an extremely terrifying speed. When Zuanan saw the scene, his face instantly changed drastically. "What? This is is the opening of an otherworldly immortal art? With his cultivation realm and soul power, how is this possible? Sannin's face gradually turned pale. With his current strength he was simply unable to block such an immortal art. To the side, Muyu also panicked when she saw the meteorites smashing down from the sky, and shouted to Lin Chen, "Divine Son, quickly put away your immortal arts." Lin Chen thought to himself that it was he who made the first move, and now he wants me to stop. Am I a fool? Sannin looked at the meteorite, which was already close at hand, in horror, and he could already feel the high temperatures emanating from it. In the nick of time, a woman's figure appeared in front of Sannin, instantly gathering her chi to unleash her immortal technique, blocking the blow for Sannin. Xuanan was sweating coldly. He had never felt so close to death since the time he entered the Eternal Sect to cultivate. The person who took this fatal blow for him was none other than the Eternal Sect's patriarch and his and Muyu's master, Shi Xiaoya. Lin Chen was surprised to see his attack being blocked. Fixing his eyes on him and realizing that it was actually Shi Xiaoya, he immediately cupped his fists and knelt down on one knee. Divine Son Lin Chen, see Patriarch. Xuanan and Muyu were both confused. Lin Chen had called himself a divine son in front of the Patriarch. This could never be an impostor anymore. Could it be that this ordinary person was really a newly established divine son? Nuria did not feel particularly surprised. Lin Chen had concluded from the moment he unleashed the divine text immortal technique that could open up the otherworldly realm that although Lin Chen's cultivation realm and soul power level were not high, he was proficient in the powerful divine text immortal technique. Divine Son, why did you use the immortal technique that the three elder ancestors have forbidden you to use to harm my disciple? Shi Xiaoya looked at Lin Chen with a cold face. Her protege? Lin Chen was a bit confused. The person who just wanted him dead was actually Shi Xiaoya's disciple? It was no wonder that the strength was so strong. After freezing for a second, Lin Chen said, reporting to Patriarch, it was him who said that I had trespassed into the divine hall by impersonating a divine son, and at the drop of a hat, he directly unleashed his immortal arts on me. Shi Xiaoya's face turned even colder as she instantly turned her head and looked coldly and sternly at Xuanan, who was sitting on the ground. Xuanan, is what the godson said true? Zonan had never seen his master's eyes so cold, and was at a loss for words. Seeing that Xuanan didn't say anything, Shi Xiaoya turned her gaze back to her second disciple, Twilight Rain. Twilight Rain glanced at Zonan in a difficult way. She didn't want to lie to her master, but she didn't want to make her senior brother feel cold, so she also fell silent. Seeing that her two disciples were silent, Shi Xiaoya understood that what Lin Chen had said was true, and she revealed a huffy expression. Xuanan, I told you on the first day you worshipped under me that you should not be high-minded. You're afraid that you didn't see that Godson's cultivation realm and soul power were low, so you deliberately made a move with him, right? The disciple is thinking that it is impossible for such a qualification to be established as a divine son, so the disciple thinks that he is posing as a divine son, which is why It was only in the main hall that he directly unleashed his immortal magic on him, wasn't it? Nonsense, simply nonsense. The divine son established by the three old ancestors, is it not for you to question? Xuanan wanted to cry his heart out. He had just returned to the clan with his own senior sister's experience. Where did he know that the son of God was actually such an inconspicuous teenager? And even more so, he didn't think that Lin Chen, a void realm cultivator only, could actually unleash the immortal technique of opening up the otherworldly realm. Shi Xiaoya took a deep breath and looked at Lin Chen. Divine son, it's up to you to decide how to deal with Xuanan. Within the clan, apart from the three elders, no disciple can unleash their immortal techniques on you. He's already violated the clan's rules. Lin Chen froze and quickly said, forget it, he can't be blamed for not knowing that I'm the son of a god. Luckily, Patriarch, you stepped in time, otherwise I'm afraid that my immortal technique would have already seriously injured him. Shi Xiaoya didn't expect Lin Chen to actually choose to give up disposing of Xuanan. Of course she knew that even though Lin Chen was a divine son, his strength was indeed inferior to her own disciple, Xuanan. The only reason why Lin Chen had been able to suppress Xuanan just now was because Xuanan had been careless and hadn't expected Lin Chen to know such a powerful immortal art. So being embarrassed by Xuanan like this, but Lin Chen took the initiative to give up punishing him, which caused Shi Xiaoya to once again have a new perception of Lin Chen. Chi does not flourish, heart is not satisfied, talent does not show. Very good, worthy of being a divine son. Shi Xiaoya appreciated. More praise from the Patriarch. Nuria let out a sigh of relief, thinking that it was a good thing that Lin Chen didn't take it personally, or else senior brother Xuanan would have been in deep trouble. At the same time, she took a closer look at Lin Chen and realized that he had an awe-inspiring body, a pair of eyes that shot cold stars, and a broad chest that looked all righteous. Without realizing it, Lin Chen had already left a very good impression of Muyu. However, Xuanan, who had been scared out of his wits by Lin Chen just now, didn't feel grateful in his heart for sparing Lin Chen's life, but instead developed an incomparably thick resentment. Xuanan felt that Lin Chen was really hypocritical. Just now he had clearly dealt him a death blow. If it wasn't for his master's timely arrival he would have been seriously injured or fallen. And now you're acting all moralistic. What's not hypocritical about that? Furthermore, Lin Chen had short-circuited the position of God's son that he had originally just taken, which made Xuanan hate him even more. After ending the farce, Shi Xiaoya asked Lin Chen what he had come to the main hall for. Shouldn't this moment be his time to cultivate? Master Wuji said that my soul power is too weak for me to carry out Gungfu cultivation for the time being. He told me to go to the soul tower first to raise my soul power. I originally intended to come to the main hall to look for you, Sovereign, but then I ran into. Shi Xiaoya nodded, then said to Twilight Rain and Xuanan, who were standing by her side, Xuanan, you guys have returned from your training, so it's just as well that you need to test your soul power. The two of you take the divine son to the soul tower. The two of them, Muyu and Xuanan, took Lin Chen along with them to to the Soul Tower, and along the way, Xuanan had a gloomy face and didn't say a word, while Muyu and Lin Chen chatted furiously. Divine Son, are you really only in the reincarnation realm and White Soul? How on earth did you read the divine text on the Eternal Life Bell and make it ring 9 times? Maybe it's a gift, huh? Lin Chen sized up the girl beside him. She looked like she should be about the same age as him, but she had an indescribable aura about her. Xuanan, who hadn't said anything, snorted coldly and said with a mocking tone, "Talent? You're talking to Xiaoyu about talent?" She already stepped into the unbreakable realm when she was 13 years old, and then later spent 5 years cultivating to her current Songdong realm. Lin Chen was surprised that Muyu had stepped into the Songdong realm at only 18 years old. One must note that the 5 supreme exalted in the clan were only at the reincarnation realm, and they were all in their early 30s. Seeing Lin Chen reveal an expression of surprise, Xuanan became even more pleased. Looking at the entire Hanggu continent, there are very few 18-year-old Sangdao realm cultivators. How dare you talk about talent in front of Xiaoyu? Xuanan's aggressive words caused Lin Chen to also finally understand that the person in front of him, called Xuanan, held heavy hostility towards him. Lin Chen's face was flat as he looked at Xuanan. Yes, her talent is indeed terrifying, but it's her talent, so how come it comes out of your mouth as if this 18-year-old Songdong realm cultivator is you? After saying that, Lin Chen sized up Xuanan again and spoke once more. Although you're also at Songdong realm cultivator, if I guess correctly, you're already 25 years old, aren't you? Xuanan's face instantly turned red as he retorted, so what if you're 25 years old? What about you? What are you clamoring for at a mere void realm? Even though it's considered a middle to high level realm, your soul power is only White Soul, not as good as most cultivators of the unbroken realm. Seeing that the atmosphere was not right, Mirio quickly stepped forward to round up the situation. She pulled Xuanan and said, "Senior brother, don't be like this. Master knows that you are going to be chastised for speaking disrespectfully to the Divine Son." Seeing that his favored junior sister no longer irritated Lin Chen with her words, Xuanan lightly grunted and accelerated his steps to walk ahead. Lin Chen narrowed his eyes and didn't get on Xuanan's bad side again. Lin Chen thought to himself, "You hot chicken, I only used 1 minute to advance from the water-stopping realm to the Songdong realm. You spent 25 exhausting years to Songdong realm. Are you not a clown?" However, to Lin Chen's surprise, Twilight Rain, as Xuanan's senior sister, did not immediately follow Xuanan, but stayed by Lin Chen's side. Muyu blinked her big watery eyes at Lin Chen and said quietly, "Godson, don't be angry with my senior brother. He's just like that. His mouth is always unforgiving, but his heart is actually still very kind. It's fine, I'm not angry with him. You don't have to call me Godson, it's weird. We're the same age, you can just call me by my name." "Aha, then you can call me Xiaoyu." Lin Chen? I don't know why, but his heart was beating so hard after being called out like that by Twilight Rain, and he couldn't help but blush. In the original world, Lin Chen was just an otaku who liked to read novels and watch anime, and had hardly interacted with the opposite sex in 18 years. Now that he had a sweet and gentle-looking girl like Twilight talking to him, he was more or less shy. Seeing the blushing Lin Chen, I don't know if it was intentional for Muyu to do so, she came closer to Lin Chen again and asked, "Lin Chen, senior brother has always been unable to do things within the clan, but I'm different. I did hear that you were still in the water-stopping realm at the time of the examination, and that you immediately advanced to the void realm with just one divine text." Lin Chen let out a hum, not quite used to getting so close to the opposite sex. He subconsciously took a step back. "So my talent is not even worth mentioning in front of you." After finishing her speech, Muyu gave Lin Chen a light smile and walked forward with her hands behind her back. Lin Chen followed the two of them, Muyu and Xuanan, to the Eternal Sect's inner pavilion, which, unlike the empty and unoccupied main hall, had quite a number of disciples and tutors gathered in it. And the tallest building in the cabinet was the Soul Tower. The first time Lin Chen saw the Soul Tower, he was shocked by its domineering appearance. The Soul Tower was 100 meters high, the tower as a whole was crimson in color, and every 20 meters there was a halo surrounding it. There were 5 halos in total, and the higher the halo, the bigger the halo. Before he even got close to the Soul Tower, Lin Chen could already feel the powerful soul power it was faintly emitting. This is the Soul Tower. When Xuanan saw Lin Chen looking like he hadn't seen the world, he thought to himself, where did this country bumpkin come from? He can be a godson like this. Thinking about it made Sanam even angrier. The Soul Tower hasn't even been seen, Zonin said disdainfully. Mirio stood beside Lin Chen and explained for him, Soul Towers are also divided into 3 levels. They are 10-meter towers, 100-meter towers, and 1,000-meter towers. Generally the Soul Towers of the small clans are 10-meter towers, and only the strong and large clans have 100-meter towers. And the only 1,000-meter tower on the eternal ancient continent is in the Heavenly God Hall. Lin Chen silently recited in his heart, Heavenly God Temple. What kind of organization is this? All the disciples of the Eternal Sect knew Xuanan and Muyu. After all, as the disciples of the Patriarch, they were the strongest cultivators of the Eternal Sect excluding the 3 elder ancestors and the Patriarch. Twilight Rain, in particular, was regarded as a goddess by many male disciples within the sect, and had an extremely large number of followers. Quickly look, isn't that senior sister Muriu and senior brother Xuanan? The two of them have returned from their training. Senior sister Muriu has become beautiful again. I heard that senior sister Muyu and senior brother Xuanan's cultivation realms aren't going to be promoted for the time being. They're now now impacting the fiery soul from the end of the lunar soul stage now. The many disciples around them were talking when they saw the two of them. However, they soon realized something shocking. Muryu and Zonin had a person with them behind them, and Muryu was talking and laughing with this person. Cabinet disciples were not allowed to step out of the cabinet during cultivation, so on that day of the opening of the mountain to accept disciples, they only heard just the sound of the longevity bell ringing and learned that someone had been accepted as a disciple by the three elder ancestors and was established as a divine son of the clan. But none of them had ever seen what the Son of God actually looked like. Therefore, these disciples didn't know who Lin Chen was, but he was actually able to talk and laugh with senior sister Muryu. On what grounds? Who is that kid next to senior sister Muryu? He doesn't even have an inner cabinet clan uniform. Is he just an outer cabinet disciple? Nonsense, he didn't even wear the outer pavilion clan uniform, presumably a disciple of another clan. Humph, this kid looks like he has a very low cultivation realm. He's just a low realm cultivator. What makes him so capable of talking and laughing with my senior sister Twilight Rain? How could Lin Chen have known that he had already been hated by a large number of cabinet disciples even before he stepped into the Soul Tower? When the three of them, Muryu and Lin Chen and Xuanan, arrived under the towering Soul Tower, Muryu said to Lin Chen, since you haven't entered the Soul Tower before, you'll have to go to the door of the Soul Tower to test your soul power first. Lin Chen nodded his head and walked towards the door of the Soul Tower. In front of the gate of the Soul Tower was an ordinary elder, and on the day of the examination, he had never seen the true face of the God's Son, so naturally, he did not recognize Lin Chen. Hello, I'm going to take the psionic test. The elder guarding the tower was called Sitaming, and when Sitaming saw Lin Chen, who wasn't wearing any clan uniform, he froze for a second. What's your name? Why aren't you wearing a clan uniform? In the Eternal Sect, except for the disciples of the Patriarch and the disciples of the elder ancestors, all other disciples had to wear the appropriate level of the sect's uniform. When Sitaming saw that Lin Chen wasn't wearing his clan uniform, his face immediately sank. Cultivating without wearing the clan's uniform is a major taboo, and has already violated the clan's rules. Clan clothes? I don't have a clan uniform. Lin Chen answered truthfully to Sitaming. A bunch of nonsense, all Eternal Sect disciples have clan uniforms. To enter the Soul Tower, you must ship clan uniforms. You say you don't have a clan uniform, can't it be that you're not a disciple of the Eternal Sect? I'm a disciple of the Eternal Sect, but I don't see that Twilight Rain and Xuanan and the others are wearing any sect uniforms, so why should I? Sitaming looked like he had heard a heavenly joke as he burst into a fit of laughter, while attracting many of the surrounding disciples to watch. Even the disciples who were preparing to enter the Soul Tower surrounded them, wanting to see who had caused Elder Situ to lose his temper so much in front of the Soul Tower gate. Who are Muryu and Xuanan? They are disciples of the Patriarch, disciples of the Eternal Sect. Only the disciples of the Patriarch and the three great ancestors don't need to wear the sect uniforms. All other disciples have to wear them. Lin Chen let out a flat, so plain sound and said in a very calm tone, "Then you can quickly test my soul power." Sito was stunned and thought to himself, did he not make it clear enough? This time, even the onlooker disciples couldn't help themselves, cursing Lin Chen if he had a problem with his ears, and a man at the head of them stood out. He said to Lin Chen, "You kid can't be bothered with oil and salt, can you? Don't you understand the words of Elder Situ? No one is allowed to step into the Soul Tower without a clan uniform, much less test their soul power." The surrounding people gasped in shock, because the person who had opened his mouth to Lin Chen was the disciple of the 10,000 exalted one of the 5 supreme exalted ones, Yishio. Yishio was a cultivator who ranked in the top 10 among the disciples of the Eternal Sect, and all the disciples knew that Yishio had the most hatred for disciples who violated the rules of the sect. Lin Chen cocked his head and looked at Yishio Dao. "And who are you?" All the disciples were stunned, thinking to themselves that not only was this idiot not wearing the clan uniform, but he actually didn't even recognize senior brother Yishio? He can't be a new disciple to the sect, right? He doesn't know the rules at all. Impossible, even a newcomer would be taught the rules within the sect by the elders on the first day of joining the sect. They wouldn't be so ignorant. Yishio obviously also didn't expect that with his fame, there were actually people within the clan who didn't recognize him. "Yishio Dao, it's none of your business who I am, and since you don't have a zone clothing, get out of here and get out of the way." Lin Chen narrowed his eyes. What if I must test my soul power today and also enter this Soul Tower? Then I'm going to let you know what it means to have family laws and clan rules. Seeing that the situation was not right, Muryu, who was standing behind the crowd, wanted to go and help Lin Chen out, but was stopped by Xuanan, who was beside him. "Senior brother, Lin Chen is a divine son. I can't just watch as they make things difficult for him like this," Muryu said anxiously. Xuanan shook his head and said in a calm tone, "He's the son of God. If he can't even solve this trouble, he doesn't deserve to sit in this position." "But, shall you listen, you don't want the clan to establish a waste as a divine son, do you?" In the end, Twilight Rain was still stopped by Xuanan and could only watch as Lin Chen was surrounded by the crowd. The atmosphere between Lin Chen and Yishio was tense, but in his heart, Lin Chen was not willing to start a conflict with Yishio, because only earlier he had made a mess with Xuanan in the main hall, and now if he was to greatly fight with a disciple of the same clan, he would inevitably go back to be scolded by the three masters. Lin Chen took a deep breath and said to Situ Ming, "Elder Situ, is it? It's true that I don't have any clan clothing. My master has never mentioned this thing to me." Situ Ming frowned and said, "Your master is? Old Ancestor Wuji, Old Ancestor Bodhi, and Old Ancestor Void Kuan." At this remark, the originally noisy crowd became silent, and after a few seconds everyone burst into laughter. Situ Ming's face darkened, thinking that he had been toyed with by a junior. "According to your words, you're the meaning of the Son of God cackling?" Yishio mocked. Lin Chen nodded. This time, Yishio also stopped talking nonsense with Lin Chen and directly gathered chi, and his immortal shadow also instantly appeared behind him, emitting an aura that caused the disciples who had gathered on the sidelines to take multiple steps backward. But Lin Chen, who was closest to Yishio, didn't move at all, and didn't even blink his eyes. This caused Yishio to be slightly startled. Bold. Not wearing the clan uniform, speaking out of turn, and impersonating a divine son, you've already violated 3 consecutive clan rules, and according to the clan's regulations, I may punish you in place. Lin Chen looked at the purple immortal shadow behind Yishio, the corner of his mouth grinned, and he said to himself, it's just the reincarnation realm. When Yishio heard this, he was even more furious. The reincarnation realm was described as nothing in this person's eyes? Ha, I'd like to see if the reincarnation realm you despise can make you kneel under this soul tower today. Yishio said that and directly launched his immortal technique, and it was too late for Situming, who was on the side, to stop Yishio, and he screamed out in a dark voice that it was not good. The surrounding disciples were also shocked. They didn't expect Yishio to make a direct move on Lin Chen here, and they all already expected Lin Chen to be sent flying in the next second, paying the price for his ignorance. However, in the next second, a scene that surprised everyone appeared. Lin Chen put his hands behind his back and recited gathering chi. A huge red immortal shadow instantly swelled up behind him, and then, in an indifferent tone, he said in divine writings, hurricane. In an instant, Lin Chen's side instantly rolled up an incomparably tall hurricane. Looking at Yishio's immortal technique was going to run into Lin Chen, but sadly this sudden launch of the divine text immortal technique directly bounced away. Yishio's reaction was also very fast, and he immediately stabilized his stance after only taking a few steps backwards, but the disdainful expression he had just worn had long since turned into incredulity. How is this possible? The color of the immortal shadow behind him, it's the void realm, and that divine text immortal technique, it's actually the usual immortal technique of Grand Elder Ling Feng. Yishio wasn't the only one who was surprised. The other disciples had also long been completely dumbfounded when they saw the red reincarnation realm immortal shadow behind Lin Chen. Yishio's surprised expression fleetingly passed as he instantly drew his saber and attacked Lin Chen. Yishio's master, Venerable Wan, was also a cultivator who used the sword, and this sword art was passed on to Yishio. Little Royal Thunder Skill. Lin Chen almost didn't laugh out loud when he heard the immortal technique that Yishio unleashed. The Little Thunderbolt technique? Are you sure you're not trying to be funny? Lin Chen thought to himself, it's just as well, since someone is delivering it to my door, I'll try out the sword art I just learned. Lin Chen no longer tangled with Yishio, and he immediately pulled out the black whistling granted to him by the Wuji ancestor. He crossed his sword with both fingers together, and the black whistle instantly emitted a black sword sheath that was bizarre and domineering. Soaring Imperial Thunder Skill. Words followed the law. The black tsunami in Lin Chen's hand emitted a cold light, and even the immortal shadow behind Lin Chen had an enlarged version of the black tsunami appearing in his hand, and with his hand rising and falling, the sword sheath slashed straight at Yishio. Yishio's face turned pale all of a sudden when he saw the scene. Soaring Imperial Thunder technique. That was the Holy Realm immortal technique of the Wuji old ancestor. Why was he able to make it? Yishio finally reacted to the fact that in front of him, this person who wasn't wearing a clan uniform, he really was the son of God. The black tsunami held by Lin Chen's hand erupted with incomparable power, and the black sword sheath slashed at Yishio, instantly shattering his Little Royal Thunder Skill, and Yishio flew out with it. Yishio's immortal shadow, who had fallen to the ground, instantly shattered as he spat out a large mouthful of blood and instantly fainted. On top of that, there was a sword mark left on the ground from the sword chi, which was still emitting an eerie black gas. The disciples who had been mocking Lin Chen just a moment ago had long since been dumbfounded, and none of them spoke up again. This is the Ascension Royal Thunder Skill, a genuine Ascension Royal Thunder Skill. A disciple came back to his senses, his tone incomparably shocked. Senior brother Yishio didn't even carry off a single move. My god, could he really be the son of God? These watching disciples are once again clamoring, who within the clan does not know that the Ascension Royal Thunder Skill is the famous immortal technique of the Wuji ancestor. There were also disciples who recognized the black tsunami in Lin Chen's hand. He must be that newly established divine son. That sword in his hand is the black tsunami of Elder Wuji. The scene instantly flipped, and everyone was convinced that this teenager who had defeated Yishio with a single strike was the son of God. Lin Chen put away the black whistle and glanced faintly at the fainting Yishio, not worrying too much in his heart. He had collected his strength, or else with such a powerful immortal technique, Yishio would have died for sure without casting any defensive immortal techniques. Elder Situ, can you test my soul power now? My 3 masters really didn't give me any zonfu. Lin Chen looked towards Situ Ming. It was only then that Situ Ming came back to his senses from the shock. The corner of his eyes twitched when he heard Lin Chen's words, and he thought to himself, do I dare not give you a test, and you won't be able to get me killed as an old thing? Clothing? Of course the son of God doesn't have a clan uniform. Yishio was hurriedly carried away to the medical pavilion by a few other disciples who followed him, looking for the clan doctor to save his life. The face of Zuanan, who wanted to watch the fun at the very back, was as ugly as a fly. Originally he wanted to see Lin Chen laugh, but he didn't expect Lin Chen to defeat Yishio with just one strike. I didn't realize he had a couple of tricks up his sleeve, Zonan said indignantly. Muyu glanced at Zuanan with a strange look, thinking to to himself that his senior brother had become strange ever since he returned to the clan. Why was he targeting Lin Chen at every turn? At this time, Situ-Ming began his soul power test on Lin Chen, and all the disciples flipped their attitudes from earlier, and immediately reversed their attitudes after learning that Lin Chen was really a divine son. I knew he's a divine son within the clan. Besides senior sister Muryu and senior brothers Wanan, then surely only divine sons don't have to wear clan uniforms. I heard that the divine son was still only in the water-stopping realm on the day of the test, and he only used one divine text to instantly advance 5 realms in a row from the water-stopping realm to become the void realm. That's 5 realms in one day. The divine son's soul power level is certainly not low, at least it's also a lunar soul end stage, and if you think about it more powerfully, you might have already stepped into the fiery soul. These onlooker disciples were always like this, seeing the wind, they bragged about whoever's identity and whoever's strength was stronger. After Situ-Ming had learned that Lin Chen was really a divine son, he was also somewhat looking forward to the results after the test. This was because over the years, excluding some disciples who were born with strong soul power, they had already reached the middle stage of the lunar soul at the time of the test. Most of the disciples' soul power was only at the end of the white soul stage when they tested. The amount of immortal arts released by a cultivator all depended on the soul power level, and only the higher the soul power level could release a large amount of immortal arts in a short period of time. Divine son, please place your hand on this soul stone, and then gather your chi instantly. Lin Chen placed his hands on the soul stone, which was only the size of a watermelon, as instructed by Situ-Ming, and then gathered his chi once again. Everyone had great expectations for Lin Chen, the son of a god. Perhaps he could break through the record of the Eternal Sect soul power test. The record for the Eternal Sect soul power test was set by the current sect leader Qi Xiaoya, and back then, when she first joined the Eternal Sect for the soul power test, she directly measured the rank of the pre-fiery soul stage. It was important to know that for normal cultivators, it was more difficult for their soul power to reach the fiery soul than it was to cultivate to the Tsung Dong realm. However, Qi Xiaoya was born with a fiery soul, which directly surpassed too many cultivators, which also allowed her to successfully become the new sect leader of the Eternal Sect many years later. The soul stone sensed Lin Chen's gathering of qi, and the soul stone's original black and gray surface began to change, and a minute later, 4 words appeared twisted on the soul stone. Everyone held their breath as they waited for Situ-Ming to announce the results of the test. Situ-Ming sucked in a breath of cold air when he saw the 4 words on the soul stone, and for a moment he thought if the soul stone was broken. However, the soul stone did not show any abnormalities, which meant that the test results were fine. Sito announced the results with a slightly puzzled voice. Divine Son Lin Chen's soul power test results are pre-white soul. The results of this test blew everyone away. They couldn't believe that as the clan's divine son, the divine son who could make the eternal life bell ring 9 times and could be in the 5 realms in one day, the result of the soul power test was actually only an early stage of the white soul. However, any cultivator with a bit of qualification, the result of the soul power test was at least a mid-white soul. As an exceptionally gifted son of God, could it be that his soul power was still inferior to that of an ordinary cultivator? Hearing this result, Zonin couldn't help but laugh outright, the breath he had held in his heart feeling like it had been released instantly. Muyu glanced at Xuanan with a look that carried a hint of disgust and muttered, how has senior brother become without any poise? But how come Lin Chen's soul power is only pre-white soul? Lin Chen also felt very embarrassed, and his face couldn't help but blush. Damn, what's going on? Is my old man's soul power talent so bad? Lin Chen hated that he couldn't immediately find a crack in the ground. It's even if it's seen by so many disciples, the key is that Twilight Rain is beside him. She had just been impressed by her, and she hadn't been imposing for long before she was slapped in the face by the results of the soul power test. Lin Chen spared his head, revealing an awkward and not so polite smile. Cough cough, Elder Situ, since the results of the soul power test have come out, let me enter the soul tower to cultivate quickly. Elder Situ froze, he was still a bit confused and could never figure out why the divine son's soul power was only in the early white soul stage. If that was the case, how did he unleash a powerful immortal technique like the soaring imperial thunder technique just now? Hee, divine son, quickly go inside. By the way, I have to tell you about the rules of the soul tower. The soul tower has a total of 100 floors, and the higher your soul power level is the higher you can go. On the contrary, if the soul power level is too low, even if you insist on going up, you'll be restricted by the soul tower itself and won't be able to go up to the higher levels. So once one is able to travel to a higher level now, it means that the soul power level has improved. Of course, this soul tower can't come to cultivate every day. This will cause the cultivator's soul to suffer trauma, and then it will be difficult to raise the soul power again. Lin Chen nodded his head, and after thanking Situ-Ming, he didn't rush into the soul tower. He turned back to look at Muyu, smiled and said, little you, didn't the patriarch ask you to test your soul power? Come and test it. It's my first time at the soul tower. I'm still waiting for you to go in and teach me how I should cultivate. Lin Chen's words to Twilight Rain incurred the jealousy of countless disciples. On the side, Xuanan also clenched his fists and stared at Lin Chen with a deadly stare. Muriel nodded her head in a flattered manner, then walked over to Situ-Ming's body and smiled lightly at him. Elder Situ, I'm troubling you. Xiaoyu, I haven't seen you since you went to practice outside the clan. Let me take a look at the results of your adventures this time. time. Situ Ming took out the soul stone and told Muyu to put her hands on it and then gather her chi. Muyu placed his hands on top of the soul stone to gather chi. The black and gray soul stone changed once again, and a few moments later 4 big words appeared on the soul stone. Situ Ming smiled in relief and said in a loud voice, "Pre-blazing soul." The crowd clamored, shocked by the results announced by Situ Ming. Among all the disciples in the Eternal Sect, excluding the disciple who had a soul son, Muyu's current soul power level was the strongest. It should be known that a month ago, when Muyu had not yet left the clan to practice, his soul power level was only at the end of the moon soul stage, and it was only a short month ago that he had already broken through to the early stage of the fiery soul. Not bad, not bad. Xiaoyu, you are now in the pre-fiery soul stage. With your talent and cultivation speed, impacting the mid-fiery soul stage within a year won't be a problem. Nuria spat out her tongue. Hehe, Elder Situ overpraised me. Senior brother Xuanan is training with me this time, and his soul power enhancement isn't inferior to mine. Kurenai finished and stepped back, giving her place to Sanai. With a calm expression on his face, Xuanan placed his hands on top of the soul stone and gathered his chi. The soul stone began to change, and the results of the test were quickly presented. Sovereign Disciple Xuanan, soul power test results. Middle fiery soul stage. Xuanan revealed a smug look as he raised his head slightly and turned his gaze towards Lin Chen. The expression on his face seemed to be saying, "See that waste, middle stage of the fiery soul. You, a waste of a pre-white soul stage, are also worthy of being a divine son?" Lin Chen ignored Xuanan's gaze with provocation, but instead said to Twilight Rain at the side, "Let's go, little Rain, quickly teach me how to cultivate my soul power within the soul tower. You're a pre-fiery soul, so teach me some experience. I'm only a pre-white soul." Seeing that he was directly ignored by Lin Chen, Xuanan was a bit mute and thought to himself, is this kid really just a little bit ashamed? It was just that Xuanan still didn't know that Lin Chen had risen 5 realms in one day, and would look at him as a mid-stage fiery soul? As long as Lin Chen wanted to, it was just a matter of words. Entering the soul tower, Lin Chen was surprised to find that there were dozens of rooms on each floor for cultivators to cultivate their soul power. "Lin Chen, I have to go up to the 60th floor to cultivate, so I can't be here with you. By the way, the 3 elder ancestors should have taught you how to cultivate your soul power in the soul tower, right?" Muyu asked. Lin Chen let out a bitter smile. "Those 3 masters of mine haven't really taught me how I should cultivate in the soul tower. They went back to sleep every time after teaching me the techniques." "Ah, the 3 elder ancestors, that's not sleeping, it's hibernating. Dormant? As far as I know, my 3 masters are the Eternal Sect's war ceilings. All of them are Saint Realm powerhouses, so why do they need to go dormant?" Nuria didn't expect Lin Chen to even know this bit of common sense. As she recalled all the previous events, she felt that Lin Chen didn't look like a cultivator, or else he barely knew anything about cultivators. But he is the son of God, and this contradicts each other. Maybe that's genius, thought Kurenai. Well, after a cultivation realm reaches the Saint Realm, the Yuanshan can detach itself from the physical body and rely on its own soul power to appear in reality, which is also known as soul embodiment. Ordinary cultivators will most likely die outright if their physical body suffers a serious injury, while cultivators who have reached the Saint Realm will rely on soul embodiment to survive in the state of a soul body, leaving the physical body dormant. Cultivators divided Saint Realm cultivators into 2 types, one called dormant Saint Realm powerhouses and one called road Saint Realm powerhouses. The 3 old ancestors suffered serious injuries to their physical bodies on the 100 Clans melee 200 years ago, so they could only soul physicalize and become dormant Saint Realm powerhouses. So it is. Lin Chen suddenly realized, no wonder every time his 3 masters could only come out for a short while before going back to rest, so it turned out that they appeared in front of him in the form of their soul bodies. Thinking about it, it must be very soul draining. Lin Chen said in his heart, there are still too many rules in this world that he doesn't know, so he must ask Twilight Rain for more advice later on. Anyway, she was Patriarch Qi Xiaoya's disciple, so the Divine Son asking her for advice on a problem wasn't considered pulling down her status, was it? Quickly teach me how to cultivate my soul power in the soul tower. I'll strive to be able to go to the 60th floor tomorrow to find you and cultivate together. Twilight Rain's eyes widened as she covered her small mouth and exclaimed, tomorrow. But you're only in the pre-white soul stage now nah. Xuanan, who happened to walk into the soul tower, heard Lin Chen's words and mocked, are you telling jokes? Are you trying to break through from pre-white soul to fiery soul in one day? No one has ever done that in this immortal cultivation world. Don't think that just because you're a divine son that you can mouth off. Lin Chen glanced at Xuanan, still ignoring him. As for Muyu, after her surprise, she thought of Lin Chen's precedent of ascending 5 realms in one day, and she vaguely felt that it wasn't impossible for Lin Chen to use one day to break through to martyr soul. Lin Chen randomly chose a cultivation room. The room did not have any other decorations. A strange device stood in the center of the room. Twilight Rain introduced this as a soul gatherer. As long as you input your soul power into the soul gatherer and use your mind to manipulate your soul power to mingle and refine with the karma flame and the soul gatherer, your soul power will increase. Saying that, Muyu gave Lin Chen a demonstration. Lin Chen instantly learned the method, spared his head and laughed. Quite simple. Tomorrow I'll definitely be able to go to the 60th floor to find you. Aha, I'm sure you can. You're a divine son yo. Nurina gave a cheering gesture and winked at Lin Chen before leaving the place. After Muyu left, Lin Chen's face returned to a serious expression. In fact, just now, when the result of the soul power test was pre-white soul, he also felt incomparably surprised and even a little unable to accept it. Damn it, the sovereign was born with a fiery soul, why should I be born with a white soul and still be a fucking pre-existing stage? This is not fair. Lin Chen gave a wild cry of impotent rage, then injected his soul power into the soul-gathering artifact, and began to intermingle and grind with the karmic fire. After an hour, Lin Chen felt that his soul power hadn't improved much. He knew that if he continued to cultivate at this rate, the increase in soul power would be too slow. Immediately, Lin Chen said in English, also known as divine text, double your cultivation, super double it. Lin Chen once again injected soul power, and this time the rate of enhancement was obviously several times faster, but Lin Chen was still not satisfied. Well, at least just now, he also boasted that tomorrow, he would go up to the 60th floor to look for Muriel to cultivate together. At this speed tomorrow, at most, he would reach the end of the white soul stage. However, Lin Chen no longer used the divine text to say double the cultivation to no avail, and it seemed that the peak had been reached. After thinking for a moment, Lin Chen suddenly had a bold idea. He stood up from the ground, gathered his chi, then took a deep breath and said, "Shadow split technique. Shadow split technique." Lin Chen merely said one sentence, and two people who looked exactly like him instantly appeared around him. The man had a wooden expression and appeared dull. Lin Chen looked shocked after seeing him and exclaimed, "Crap, it's still good." Lin Chen waved his hand at the Lin Chen he had split off from. "Hey, buddy, can you talk?" This doppelganger was unmoved, his eyes still incredibly empty, and his expression wooden. Lin Chen tried to control the two doppelgangers and realized that although they had no self-awareness, he could manipulate the doppelgangers to unleash immortal techniques, but only with half the power of his main body's immortal techniques. Lin Chen was incomparably excited. If he could split up a few more doppelgangers, they would cultivate their soul power at the same time. In this way, counting the doubling of cultivation, this would be a dozen times faster than an ordinary cultivator's cultivation speed. He tried to split up again, but quickly realized that the force was too much, and there was no more soul power left for him to split out. However, Lin Chen had also learned the principle of this shadow splitting technique. The stronger his soul power was, the more split bodies he would be able to separate into. There was also the possibility of being able to speak at that time, and he could go to certain dangerous places as his main body. Forget it, since you two can't speak, just follow my instructions. The two of you will have one cultivation room each and start cultivating your soul power. After the two shadow doppelgangers received the order, they each entered a cultivation room, and Lin Chen once again used his divine text to activate the cultivation doubling, and then began his soul power cultivation that had increased in speed by nearly 10 times. What Lin Chen didn't know was that the divergence technique was called a divine skill in this immortal cultivation world, totaling the entire Hanggu continent, and even many cultivators of the quasi-emperor realm were unable to perform it. At the same time, a huge whirlpool appeared in a hidden river in the Eternal Mountain, from which a white bone leaped out. This white bone was the same white bone of the emperor realm that Lin Chen had noticed last time after he was driven out by that powerful person behind the bronze gate in the Void Star realm. Hiss. There's actually someone in this Eternal Sect who can perform a divine skill like the split body technique. It shouldn't be those three old guys. They've already turned into dormant Saint Realm cultivators. It's absolutely impossible for them to perform such a divine skill. The white bones of the Emperor Realm murmured, and who could that be? I'm afraid it's not the one who opened the Void Star Realm last time? With this thought, he cast his divine thoughts in the direction of the Eternal Sect's soul tower. As an Emperor Realm cultivator, divine thoughts would not be detected by any cultivator below the Emperor Realm at all, so even the three old ancestors did not sense it. Through the soul tower, this Emperor Realm white bone saw that Lin Chen was the wielder of the split technique and was shocked, and there was a momentary fluctuation in his soul power, causing the three old ancestors who were dormant to become aware of it. White bone instantly withdrew his divine thoughts and drilled back into the river. Old ancestor Wuji stroked his beard and frowned as he said to the other two old ancestors, "Why do I feel that someone is watching our Eternal Sect?" Perhaps it's not surprising that any Emperor Realm powerhouse passed by from the sky and happened to glance at our Eternal Sect. After all, the 100th Sect Assembly is about to begin, and many cultivators are rushing towards North Cold Island, and our Eternal Mountain is not far from North Cold Island. Old man Bodhi returned with disbelief. That's true. This time, when we attend the 100th Sect Assembly, let the late girl bring our good disciple with her. The white bone of the Emperor Realm that retracted into the river closed its breath for a long time before speaking again. Fortunately, this emperor reacted quickly, or else if I let those three old undead sense my existence, this emperor should change places again. But then again, the kid in that soul tower is only at the Void Realm and White Soul. How did he manage to perform a divine skill? This son is extraordinary, somewhat interesting. Within the soul tower, it only took Lin Chen 2 hours for him to break through to the end of the White Soul stage, and he was in the process of impacting the Moon Soul. Lin Chen withdrew his soul power, then tried to activate the shadow divergence technique once more, and as expected, it was just as he had guessed. After his soul power level increased, he was now able to split into 4 doppelgangers. Sure enough, if I can raise it to fiery soul, I'm afraid I'll be able to split into a dozen or so doppelgangers. With this immortal technique, wouldn't cultivating other techniques also proceed at dozens of times the speed? Lin Chen didn't delay, and had the two newly separated doppelgangers join in cultivating their soul power as well. Lin Chen had been cultivating in the soul tower for the entire night, and he hadn't even stepped out of the cultivation room. And when Muriel and Zuanan came to the soul tower again the next morning, Muriel asked Situ Ming, Elder Situ, when did the divine sun come out yesterday after we left? The godson didn't come out at all, he's been in the soul tower all night. Muyu was stunned. She didn't expect Lin Chen to actually cultivate for an entire night in the soul tower. On the side of Zuanan one day, could not help but laugh. Oh, he is still a bit of self-awareness. process, knowing that his soul power level is inferior to others. Even sleep is not sleep. After a pause, Zonin added in a disdainful tone, but so what? He doesn't think he'll be able to impact the rank of spirited soul with one night's time, does he? Senior brother, Lin Chen is also a divine son anyways. You saying that is more or less a bit disrespectful to the divine son. The facts are here. When I impacted the fiery soul from the moon soul, it all took me half a year, and when a horrible talent like yours elevated from the moon soul to the fiery soul, it also took you a full 3 months. He's only a pre-white soul, let him exert himself even more. Now he's at most a mid-white soul. When Muriel still wanted to retort, Situ Ming spoke up. Little you, Xuanan is right. Even if it's a natural soul power cultivator like Soul Sun, he can't do it in one night to elevate from a white soul to a strong soul. Twilight Rain was dumbfounded by what was said, but there was no way to refute it. Even though Lin Chen was a divine son, to ascend from white soul to martyr soul in one night was unprecedented even on the Henggu continent. Just as the three of them were talking, a yawning teenager walked out from the soul tower. His dark circles under his eyes were extremely heavy and his face was full of fatigue. He was none other than Lin Chen, who had been cultivating all night. Good morning Elder Situ, good morning Xiaoyu, Lin Chen greeted while yawning. When Muriel saw Lin Chen, an idea suddenly sprouted in her heart, and she tentatively asked, Lin Chen, what level of soul power have you reached now? Soul power? I don't know, I'm too sleepy after practicing all night. I have to go back to sleep first. I'll come back to the soul tower to find you in the afternoon. Xuanan, however, let out a cold laugh and said, Tisk, is this using not sleeping all night as an excuse? Didn't you boast yesterday that you were going to come up to the 60th floor to practice with us? Lin Chen glanced at Xuanan, his tone extraordinarily calm. I'm sorry, I just said I was looking for Xiaoyu. When did I say I was going to look for you? The only thing that's hard in your whole body is your mouth. Do you dare to test your soul power again, so that Xiaoyu can see clearly whether you're a divine son or a mouth? Lin Chen squinted his eyes and realized that Muyu on the side was looking at himself with expectant eyes, so he immediately nodded. Alright, originally I didn't want to test it for fear that certain people wouldn't be able to accept it. Since you have to see it, then I'll test it for you to see. With that said, Lin Chen had Situ Ming take out the soul stone, and then placed his hand on top of the soul stone, and then gathered chi. The results of the test came out very quickly, and when Situ Ming saw the scene measured on the soul stone, his mouth opened wide, as if he had seen something extraordinary, and he did not speak for a long time. Twilight Rain came over to see the results and was also instantly stunned in place. Seeing the strange behavior of Situ Ming and his own senior sister, Xuanan subconsciously put his head over. With just one glance, Sanan felt his worldview crumble. This can't be. This will never happen. The crowd only saw 4 big words on the soul stone. Pre-fiery soul. Yes, Lin Chen had really spent a night cultivating from the pre-white soul stage to the pre-fierce soul stage in the soul tower. This is unprecedented not only in the Eternal Sect, but also in the Henggu continent. Once this news is spread to the outside world, it will certainly cause the shock of the entire cultivation world. Son of God. This is the Son of God. Situ Ming's voice was trembling and his eyes were full of hot tears. He had also heard the other disciples give a complete account of what the Divine Son had done on the day of the examination yesterday after Lin Chen and Muyu and the others had entered the Soul Tower. First, he made the Eternal Life Bell ring 9 times, then he casually copied Grand Elder Lingfeng's Divine Text Immortal Technique, and at the end of it all, he used a divine text that even the Elders and Supreme Exalted Ones couldn't comprehend, and he promoted 5 realms consecutively in a minute. After a few days, the Divine Son had once again created the terrifying achievement of breaking through from the pre-white soul stage to the fierce soul in one night. But this old codger of his was actually questioning the Son of God just now, so he was really old and blind. Looking at Muyu's stunned eyes, Lin Chen revealed a tired smile. Little you, I'll do what I say. I'll go to the 60th floor of the Soul Tower today to find you to cultivate together. Muyu came back to his senses and looked at Lin Chen with a look of incomparable admiration. He felt that the man in front of him not only had an unusual cultivation talent, but also a composure that exceeded that of his peers. This can't be. You must have practiced some evil techniques and soul pills to make your soul power increase so much overnight. Xuanan was infuriated after being slapped in the face, how he didn't want to believe that Lin Chen had really stepped into the pre-moon soul level. Senior brother, you've had enough. Muyu finally could no longer look at his senior brother's spiteful and verbally disrespectful treatment of Lin Chen over the past 2 days. Lin Chen is the divine son ordained by the 3 elder ancestors, and is also a person recognized by the longevity bell. You went so far as to denigrate him for practicing evil techniques and soul pills. If Master and the 3 elder ancestors found out about you slandering the divine son in this way, you would definitely be punished with a month's confinement. Xuanan didn't expect that his little sister, who had always obeyed him in the past, would openly reprimand him for someone he had only known for a few days. Lin Chen glanced blandly at Xuanan, his tone very flat. Just because you can't do it doesn't mean others can't. Dish, just practice more. More practice if you dish? Lin Chen left with those words and walked away, leaving Xuanan frozen in place with Lin Chen's words echoing in his ears for a long time. Xuanan grew up with a high level of respect and talent than most cultivators. Not only did his parents treat him as the proud existence of the family, but the clan members were even more respectful of him. After joining the Eternal Sect, he was accepted by Qi Xiuya as a disciple of the sect master and became the Eternal Eternal Sect's towering senior brother. I never thought that one day I would be told the phrase practice if you're good. Zhuan Nan stared at Lin Chen's back. He was calm on the surface, but in reality, his heart had long been filled with rage. He had already made up his mind to get rid of him. This son must not be allowed to thrive in the Eternal Sect unharmed. Lin Chen returned to his place and fell asleep. The night of cultivation last night had long since exhausted him. In fact, Lin Chen himself didn't expect that he would really be able to cultivate from pre-white soul to martyr's soul in one night, thanks to the efficacy of the shadow divergence technique. Before he broke through to the end of the white soul stage, even with the assistance of the 4 doppelgangers and the divine text of cultivation doubling, one night would not be enough for him to ascend to the level of a spirited soul. However, after Lin Chen broke through the end of the white soul and stepped into the moon soul, he discovered that the shadow split technique could actually split into 8 doppelgangers. Subsequently, every time he raised a level, the number of his bilocations multiplied by 2 times to increase, and when he cultivated to the middle stage of the moon soul, he was already able to split into 16 bilocations. At this point in time, Lin Chen counted the assistance of his 16 doppelgangers and divine texts, and his cultivation speed was equivalent to that of dozens of cultivators combined, instilling all of the enhancements into his main body. After waking up from a nap, Lin Chen felt refreshed and locally went to the Eternal Forest. Master Wuji, my disciple has followed your words and leveled up his soul power. Lin Chen didn't know where to look for his 3 godless masters, so he had no choice but to shout in the Eternal Forest. In just an instant, old ancestor Wuji appeared beside Lin Chen with his hands behind his back, staring at him with a smile on his face. Apprentice, this is only a day's time. Your soul power can be raised to what extent I, the master, still do not know well. You have to dive into cultivating your soul power and wait until January to acquire the technique. Lin Chen froze, and was instantly somewhat discouraged, so it turned out that in Master Wuji's eyes the pre-strong soul wasn't enough, and he still needed to go further up the ladder. Master, disciple knows, this is going to the soul tower to close down and cultivate. The 3 old ancestors had long since retired and never cared about what happened within the Eternal Sect. It was all handed over to the current patriarch Qi Xiaoya to manage. That was why old ancestor Wuji felt that Lin Chen had only been cultivating for one day, and even if he was exceptionally talented, he was now at most in the middle stage of the white soul. He didn't even know that Lin Chen had already broken through the fiery soul last night. Old ancestor Wuji nodded in relief and said to Lin Chen again, the 100 Sect assembly will be 5 days from now. I'll have Girl Qi bring you along. The 100 Clans Conference? The Wuji old ancestor explained for Lin Chen that the 100 Clans assembly was a clan meeting that was jointly organized by clans on various continents and islands throughout the immortal cultivation world. All the major clans from the 4 places of the Hanggu continent, the northern cold island, the land of extreme cold, and the void star realm would be traveling. Of course, not any clan could participate. There had to be a saint realm and above cultivator present within the clan in order to participate in this 100 Clans conference. The 100 Clans assembly was not only an exchange of immortal arts between clans, but also a stage for clans to show their strength. If an exceptionally talented cultivator appeared in a certain sect, after 100 sects voted together, the elder group of the 100 Sect assembly would reward the top 10 cultivators. Lin Chen asked, what kind of reward is it? Maybe it's a very powerful technique, or maybe it's a weapon of your heart, or maybe it rewards you with an extreme immortal body, all of which the Eternal Sect can't provide you with. Master, are you hoping that my disciple will receive this reward at the 100 Sect assembly? Old ancestor Wuji threw his head back and laughed a few times, then gently shook his head and looked at Lin Chen with doting eyes. Good disciple, although you are exceptionally talented and have been established as a divine son, the cultivators at the 100 Sect assembly come from all the major clans from all over the place. This immortal cultivation world never lacks geniuses. Your qualifications are ranked first in the Eternal Sect, but it's still a bit dim at the 100 Sect assembly. After a pause, the Wuji old ancestor said, but it is not that the masters don't have confidence in you, it is just that you have only been cultivating for a short time, and it is still a little early to want to compare to those old greasers who have been cultivating for several years. This time, we are just letting you go out to see the world, so that you can know that there are people outside of the world, and there is a sky outside of the sky. You concentrate on cultivating within the sect for a few years, and when the 100 Sect assembly is held in a few years, I believe that you will be able to rank in the top 10. Alright, Master is going back to hibernate. You can't just obsess over soul power enhancement in these few days, you need to review the soaring Imperial Dragon technique more. My master will come to examine you in a few days. After the Wuji old ancestor left, Lin Chen mumbled 100 Sect assembly. Lin Chen licked his mouth and said to himself, there's a man outside of man, and a heaven outside of heaven? Master, I want to be this man outside of man, heaven outside of heaven. Lin Chen didn't immediately go to the soul tower to cultivate, he wanted to try out how powerful he could unleash immortal arts now after breaking through to the pre-spirit stage. In his mind, he recalled the Ascension Royal Thunder technique, then pulled out his black whistling sword and unleashed his immortal technique on the waterfall that flowed down from the valley. Soaring Imperial Dragon technique. A huge immortal shadow appeared behind Lin Chen, and the immortal shadow wielded a sword energy, splitting the waterfall with a single stroke, and even the mountain behind the waterfall was split by a gaping hole tens of meters long. Crap, seriously? Lin Chen could hardly believe it when he saw that he had cut a 100-meter tall mountain in half. Was this really something he had done? So it turns out that immortal arts will become so powerful after soul power is raised, and it's no wonder Master Wuji wants me to focus on cultivating soul power. The white bone of the Emperor realm that was deeply hidden in the Eternal Mountain quietly surfaced out of the river, hiding all of its own aura as it silently floated towards where Lin Chen was. Rain World. The Imperial Realm white bone randomly unleashed an immortal technique. At this moment, Lin Chen was not the least bit aware that the area he was in had been surrounded by a mysterious boundary, and those outside of this area were simply unable to perceive everything within the boundary. The sky suddenly clouded over and it began to rain. Strange, just now it was a sunny day, but it's actually raining. It's just a matter of trying to use the Shadow Divergence technique to activate the Soaring Imperial Thunder technique. Will there be any strange effects? Lin Chen gathered his chi, then recited Shadow Diversion technique in divine text. The white bones of the Emperor realm, who were hiding in the shadows and observing Lin Chen, still couldn't help but be shocked despite the fact that it was already the second time they had seen Lin Chen unleash the divine skill of the splitting technique. This sun is really interesting. Yesterday was just a white soul. After a night breakthrough to the pre-strong soul, through the entire cultivation world are unprecedented. The white bones of the Emperor realm muttered to themselves, suddenly realizing that Lin Chen had separated into 30 doppelgangers, each with a wooden expression and dull eyes, with no self-awareness to speak of. But the doppelganger at the very end of the line also had a slight change in expression, and his eyes were not as dull as those of the other doppelgangers, so it was clear that he was self-aware. Of course, Lin Chen didn't notice. The pre-spirited soul is actually able to split into 30 doppelgangers. Looking at 30 people who look just like you is more or less bizarre. Lin Chen suddenly didn't dare to let the 30 doppelgangers execute the Soaring Imperial Thunder skill at the same time. Just now, just by releasing it himself, he had already cut down half of the mountain wall. If 30 of him were to release it together, wouldn't they have flattened this eternal mountain? Thinking like this, Lin Chen immediately retrieved the split with his mind. It was only the strange doppelganger at the very end that softly chanted instantaneous flash in divine script, and ducked into the forest without Lin Chen realizing it. The white bone of the hidden Emperor realm raised his eyebrows when he saw this scene and subconsciously said, strange, really strange. To actually be able to produce a doppelganger with self-consciousness, I'm afraid that this is related to this rain realm of mine, causing him to absorb the Emperor Chi and have a mutation. The Emperor realm didn't make a move to snuff out this doppelganger, but instead allowed him to hide in the forest. After Lin Chen withdrew his split art, he left the eternal forest because of the rain and headed to the Soul Tower to cultivate. The white bones of the Emperor realm quietly lifted the rain realm, and Lin Chen left the area without stopping him. After Lin Chen left, the doppelganger hiding in the forest came out. He looked at the departing Lin Chen with a thoughtful look on his face, but he also quickly used an immortal art to hide himself and walked towards the outside of the Eternal Sect. The white bone of the Emperor realm watched this scene with interest as he let go of this mutated doppelganger that was tainted with his Emperor Chi. Interesting, if we let him out, will it cause a big stir in the outside world? Emperor realm white bone and Lin Chen did not expect that this altered split, in a very short period of time, in the Hanggu continent created a force comparable to the Heavenly God Palace. Of course, this is all an afterthought. Arriving underneath the Soul Tower, Lin Chen went straight to the 60th floor to look for Muryu. After Lin Chen reached the 60th floor, he clearly felt that the soul power emanating from his surroundings was too much stronger than the bottom floor, so he thought that he would be able to improve his soul power faster by practicing here. However, there were almost no other cultivators seen here, and it was thought that the Eternal Sect's cultivators whose soul power had reached Fiery Soul and above were afraid that apart from the two Xuanan and Twilight Rain, all the others were at the Elder level or above. They rarely came to the Soul Tower to practice. Lin Chen saw Muryu, who was cultivating his soul power with his eyes tightly closed, in the middle of a cultivation room. He didn't choose to go in and disturb him, he just stood outside the door and watched quietly for a while. Lin Chen then prepared to choose a cultivation room near the corner, but unexpectedly saw a young boy who looked to be only 13 or 14 years old sitting inside a cultivation room. Reaching the Fiery Soul level at such a young age? Lin Chen subconsciously spoke to himself, but unexpectedly, the little boy's eyes snapped open and his eyebrows looked straight at Lin Chen. Are you the divine son that Grandpa Sita said? The little boy was the first to speak, his voice slightly tender. I am the son of God, and you are? The little boy walked over to Lin Chen's side, and despite his young age, the tenacity in his eyes was not like that of a 13 or 14-year-old child. My name is Feng Yun, the other senior brothers and sisters call me Soul Son. I've heard that you've risen from pre-white soul to pre-fierce soul in just one night? Soul Child? Lin Chen vaguely remembered as if he had heard Muryu or Situming mention it. Listening to his nickname Soul Son, it seemed that he had great achievements in soul power cultivation. Lin Chen nodded to Feng Yun, then asked, this is the 63rd floor of the Soul Tower, and you're only a few years old when you've reached the Fiery Soul. What made Lin Chen out of expectation was that the kid in front of him didn't show a smug smile, but instead stared at him with a look that regarded him as an enemy. I'm 13 this year, I'm already at the end of the Fiery Soul stage, and I'm in the process of impacting the Kuei Soul. Ka-Soul. Lin Chen opened his mouth and looked at this young boy who was only 13 years old with great surprise. He clearly remembered that his master Wuji was only at the rank of Kuei Soul, and this young boy in front of him called Feng Yun, who was only 13 years old, was actually close to stepping into the Kuei Soul. Not waiting for Lin Chen to speak, Feng Yun once again said, you're the fastest person I've ever seen in terms of cultivation speed, but it's easy to raise your soul power level before the Lai Soul, and it's completely possible to do so within the Soul Tower. However, from the pre-spirit of the spirit, cultivating within the Soul Tower is no longer very useful, so it's absolutely impossible for you to surpass me. Then why are you continuing to cultivate within the Soul Tower again? According to your words, you're already at the end of the Fiery Soul stage, so you're almost useless, right? You're not even clear on this point, so it seems that you definitely won't be able to surpass me. After saying that, Feng Yun turned around and went back to the cultivation room. Lin Chen didn't understand why Feng Yun held an inexplicable hostility towards him. No, it's a bit of a stretch to call it hostility, maybe it's just the competitive nature of a teenager with an immature mind. Lin Chen entered the cultivation room and immediately used his doppelganger again, then used the divine text of cultivation doubling to cultivate again. However, 2 hours passed, and Lin Chen was shocked to find that there was hardly any increase in soul power after such a long period of time, and only felt that his body's soul power had become enriched. It seems that soul son was right, cultivating soul power in the soul tower after reaching the spirited soul really doesn't improve much, not to mention that I'm still cultivating under a 100-fold increase again. Lin Chen got up and once again walked towards Feng Yun's cultivation room. Kid, brother has something to ask you. Kid, Lin Chen called out several times in a row, and Feng Yun finally got impatient with him. Who are you calling a brat? Lin Chen laughed, walked over to Feng Yun and touched his head, saying, but it's you, brother is 6 years older than you, can't I call you a brat? Feng Yun opened Lin Chen's hand with one hand, say something quickly, I'm busy. Small age temper is not small. It's just that, brother asked you, why is it useless to cultivate in the soul tower after I've attained the fiery soul? Who am I to tell you? Lin Chen had wanted to use his identity as a divine son to suppress Feng Yun, but given his previous attitude, it was clear that he wasn't the least bit afraid of his identity as a divine son, so he instantly gave up on this intention. On second thought, Feng Yun is still a child in the end, and you have to use a child's method to deal with children, the method of provocation. You don't tell me because you are afraid that I will surpass you when I find out, claiming to be a soul child, but it's not that powerful. As expected, Feng Yun became anxious upon hearing this and immediately said, nonsense, I'm a hallowed soul son, would I be afraid of you surpassing my soul power level? Feng Yun looked like he had weighed the situation for a few seconds, and finally opened his mouth. The 100-layer soul tower has an assisting effect on the cultivation of the spirit of the martyrs and those below the spirit of the martyrs, and once the spirit of the martyrs has been reached, the soul tower only has a consolidating effect on the cultivation of soul power. If you want to have a greater improvement in soul power, you can only do so through actual combat, or by going to the 1,000-layer tower. The 1,000 towers? Lin Chen did listen to Mu mention this 1,000-layer tower. It was said that in the entire Hangu continent, the only 1,000-layer tower was in a place called the Heavenly God's Temple? What do I have to do to get to the 1,000-layer tower to train? Feng Yun froze for 2 seconds, then burst into laughter. Lin Chen frowned and asked, why are you laughing? You want to go to the 1,000-layer tower to cultivate, isn't that funny? The only 1,000-layer soul tower in the Hangu continent is in the Heavenly God Temple, and is this Heavenly God Temple not something you can go to just because you want to? What do I have to do to get to the Celestial Temple? Are you really the son of